Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Love Story. I am your host, Yandea, and joining me today is Morgan, a longtime friend. Morgan also joined us on our last episode of Love Before the Fall, so some of you may recognize him, and I'm sure those of you who are watching today, maybe from following his IG, because we have been letting people know that we would be on today. You all know what a wonderful soul, wonderful and interesting soul Morgan is. So Morgan, I want to thank you for taking the time to sit with me today and to share your love story. I really appreciate it because we've never actually had a chance to just chat one-on-one in a long time.
Probably 7 years.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really looking forward to just getting a chance to pick your brain on some questions. And you know, prepping for this love story, I was looking at your IG and I looked at your YouTube and I was like, man, Morgan has done so many things in, yeah, since the last time we had a big long talk. So I thought, I might have to have him on here for for two parts, maybe three, who knows, you know what I mean? But there's a lot that we can talk about. You have a lot to share about love, about life, spirituality, the journey, the everything, you know what I mean? So I know that you will be a blessing to those watching right now. And speaking of those watching, I want to just give a special shout out to anyone who's tuning in right now. And I also want to invite you to leave your comments in the chat if you're watching. Let us know where you're from. Let us know if you know Morgan. Let us know how you're feeling about the conversation as we're going. Every now and then I will look over at the chat and, if you have any questions or comments, I'll let him know or I'll ask the questions for you. So don't be shy, don't be shy. And like always, like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Let people hear this conversation, right? If you know Morgan and you're catching this, don't just let, how do I say, don't be greedy. Don't be selfish. Share it with someone else. Let someone else hop in and show their love and support. So yes, without any further ado, Morgan, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are? Let's start there.
Well, my name is Morgan O. Smith, and I am the executive director of an organization called Bodhi Mental Care and Wellness. I'm also the founder of Yinnergy Meditation. It's actually Yinnergy Technologies, but Yinnergy Meditation is the program within Yinnergy Technologies. And I'm also the co-founder of K-More Center for Innovative Development. I'm a lot of different things. I'm a spiritual teacher. I'm a blog writer. I'm a book author. I'm a youth worker. Um, I'm a former musician, singer, former stand-up comedian, former TV show host. So yeah, throughout my life, I've done a lot of different things. But right now, currently, I'm this.
Right now, currently, you're here.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm
I
here
love it.
and present.
So, okay, so Morgan, like I was saying to you just before we jumped on, I was like, you know what? I have so many questions for you. So if you will, allow me to ask you some questions today, I think that would be really good because I feel it's very easy to just, vibe and just chat, and there'll always be great things that come out of our conversation. But there's so much to, what you do and all the things that you're involved in. I kind of want to pull some things out so that the people who are watching can really get get an idea of what you bring to humanity, what you have to share and all that. So you said it would be good. You said you're okay with that, which is great. So the first question I have for you is, before your teachings and the stillness and all of that stuff, you had a moment of awakening in 2008, right? I think is the year. Can you take us to that moment, maybe a little bit before that moment, and what exactly happened and how did it change your life?
2008. Well, prior to that year, um, it was probably 5 years prior. Uh, I was still in the TV industry. I was still a stand-up comedian and a TV show host. And I was talking to a colleague of mine who's also still in the TV industry. And she was telling me about that she went and she did she tried hypnotherapy to deal with something. I can't remember what it was that she said she was dealing with. So I said, I wonder if hypnotherapy would help me with auditions because I've always had an issue with auditions. You'd have to like just give me the part. If
Mhm.
you give me if I have to audition, I'm not going to pass the audition. I really suck at auditions. So I wondered if hypnotherapy would help me in that regard. So I decided to look into it,
Mhm.
and I found this organization that did hypnotherapy. I went to see them for an orientation. Um, so I went to the orientation and they pulled out these light and sound machines. And they said, okay, these light and sound machines, we use them during our sessions. And I said, what are light and sound machines? I said, okay, well, you put this is the actual device. You stick your headphones in there and you put on these goggles and the light will flash in your eyes and the headset will deliver these beats, these a brainwave entrainment binaural beats in your ears. So I said, okay, that's pretty interesting. I'd love to try that out. So during my session, they gave me the device with the headphones and the goggles, and I did the hypnotherapy session. After the session, I was so intrigued by the technology because nothing phenomenal happened or anything like that during the session, but I was intrigued by that type of technology. And so I ordered two devices, one for myself and one for my friend Tara, and we started to experiment with these light and sound machines. And I was very amazed with what these light and sound machines did. They opened up my creativity. I was able to brainstorm and come up with more jokes and a whole bunch of other things. I was able to experience a sense of calm, and I was really intrigued by these machines. After a while, though, and I'm still doing these hypnotherapy sessions, right? But after a while, I wasn't getting that push from these machines from these devices. So I looked online to see if there was anything similar to this thing, but was stronger than what I was using, that I was currently using. So I found
Mhm.
this program online, a very popular program. At the time, I'd never heard of it, but now on my journey, I met so many people who've done this program. And I found this program, and they made these claims that this low carrier frequency brainwave entrainment can do this and do that and whatever. And I said that's impossible based on some of the things that they were saying. But I said I was intrigued enough to order it and to see what would happen. So I ordered the sample. They offered the free sample. I brought the sample. I got the sample. I tested it out. It gave you a lot of information on how this technology works and what it does to the brain and the nervous system. And I just said, you know what? I want to experience meditation, especially what I experienced with these light and sound machines. I want to see what these things can do. So
Mhm.
I think it was about 4 weeks later. Back in those days, you had to order the actual CDs and stuff and whatever. You didn't have,
Yep.
you didn't have your downloads and things back in those days. So I think this is like
Mhm.
2003, or this was actually 2002. Well, actually, when I found the program was now 2003. So program came in. I did it for the first time. I remember doing it for the first time, and something was pulsing on the top of my head. I didn't know anything about chakras,
Mm.
but now I know it was the crown
Yeah,
chakra.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But something was
Mhm.
pulsing at the top of my head, and that was enough for me to continue doing the program. So I continued doing it, and then after a while, a lot of these strange things started happening. I wake up in the middle of the night with a full wet dream. Weird things were happening. Um, I ended up developing this phobia for the outdoors that lasted for about a week, which scared me half to death. Um, but then some good
Wow.
stuff started happening, like moments of bliss. But one thing that I noticed when I was doing this program, that every time I drank alcohol, and I was never a big alcohol drinker, but there was a time period where I was drinking heavily, and I remember
Yeah.
drinking alcohol and not being affected by the alcohol. I didn't get drunk, I didn't get tipsy, nothing happened, and I thought that was interesting. So I started to experiment to see if this was a real thing. So every time I drank, it didn't matter if I mixed drinks, it didn't matter what I did. I could drink the strongest stuff. I couldn't get tipsy and I couldn't get drunk. And I said, "Holy shit! This technology is that this is insane. That this technology can do that type of thing." So I stuck with it. I kept on doing it every day. And to tell you, since I've been
Yeah.
doing brainwave entrainment, I haven't stopped for over 22 years. I haven't missed a day in
You
over
kept
22
going.
years. I
Wow.
just kept going at
Yeah.
it, kept going at it.
Yeah.
So soon after, I lost the interest of being in the entertainment business. So I was in the so I was when I started doing this program, I was the second last year of my TV show. I was doing a TV show on the Comedy Network. It was called Buzz, which I used to do with my co-host Darren Jones, and we did the show for 9 seasons. But when we got to the last season, I was losing my interest for doing stand-up comedy and for doing anything on TV after doing,
Mhm.
at this point over a year and a half of this brainwave entrainment meditation. So the show came to an end, but we still had to air the last episode. But we were finished with our duties, but the last season still had to air. So
Yeah.
I took time off. I thought I was just probably going to take a little bit of time off before I went back into doing stand-up comedy, and things kept changing. I'm not going to go into all the details of what happened there because there's a bigger part of the story, but things were changing. I was noticing the changes that were happening, and something happened. It wasn't anything miraculous or anything like that, but I felt that I decided that I wanted to get into something like recreation, something in the community, something along those lines. So at this point, we just moved into our new place, and um, we just moved into our new place, and I felt something happened where I had this idea for this I had this idea for this creative program. So I got introduced. I don't remember how I got introduced, but I got introduced to this youth outreach worker. Her name is Kim Alexander, and I started hanging out with her for a period of time. And then uh, I had this, of course, I had this idea of trying to get this thing in the community. I didn't know how the whole community thing worked, how it worked, but she allowed me to start the program at her community center at the time. She got me a job over there, and where I was able to do this program, and we had to go and do outreach and all that type of stuff, which was new to me, and see if we can get people to participate in this program. No one came for the first week. Second week, we tried to run the
Mhm.
program. One person showed up to the workshop, and it happened to be a kid that lived on my street at the time. And he came continuously to the program, the only participant that came to the program.
Continue.
After a while, they canceled the program because I wasn't getting any participants, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't get participants to this program. So, little shortly after, um, I was introduced to another program that was through Tropicana, and they were running this mentorship program at Lester B. Pearson. So I was asked to join it to see if I can provide my expertise as a mentor to these young people, which I did. I highly enjoyed it, and I said, you know what? I think I want to do this for a living. So one thing led to another, and I ended up getting a job at Malvern Family Resource Center, which everyone, especially you all know me from there. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I was hired as a program facilitator, and then 2.5 years later, I was hired on as a youth outreach worker, provincial youth outreach worker. Um, Prior to becoming a youth outreach worker, or no, I shouldn't say that. I'm trying to remember the story. After I became a youth outreach worker, um, I was trying to find participants. I had participants that were looking for jobs and all that type of stuff, but I wanted to see if I could find participants that would join me in having philosophical talks and
Yeah. Yeah.
talk about meditation and
Yeah.
metaphysics and things of that sort.
Mhm.
But around that same time, which was in 2008, at this point, I'm meditating for like 5 years now. I'm meditating.
Yes.
A
Yeah.
lot of great things happened within those 5 years. But then 2008, I'll say, I'll be honest with the people in the audience because I don't want to hide anything. Um, if I go back a little bit, back to 2006, maybe 2005, uh, me and my friend that were experimenting with these light and sound machines, we wanted to try these experiments to see what would happen if we took brainwave entrainment and we combined it with psychedelics. So that was our experiment. So this was this
Yeah.
experiment that
Yeah.
we had, and we started to experiment with the combination of the two, and I realized that when you combine the two, that the psychedelic sessions were amplified greatly because I've had
Right. Right.
experiences of doing the brainwave entrainment. I had
Wow. Yeah. Mm.
maybe two experiences with psychedelics prior to that, and when I realized when I combined the two that it expanded to degrees that I can't even comprehend. So I realized that there was something there. So I kept on doing this on occasion. So I'm doing this on
Mhm.
occasion. Now I'm working at this organization. Um, 2.5 years passed by, whatever. Um, I'm now a youth outreach worker. And then one Saturday afternoon, I'm doing psilocybin in combination with this program that I'm doing, this low carrier frequency program. And I
Mhm.
remember doing it. I remember taking the entheogen. Entheogen has a term. It means to awaken the God within. For anyone, if you ever hear me use the term entheogen, that's what that means. So I take the entheogen and I put on the headphones to do the meditation, which is an hour, and nothing happened. I didn't even have a psychedelic trip, and so I was kind of
Wow.
and at this point, I was trying to see if I can experience something called an awakening. So for the last 2 years prior
Amen.
to this experience, that was the goal because I met this guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say his name or anything at the moment, but I met this guy through some people that you know, and he was talking about spiritual
Mm-hmm.
enlightenment and talking about Osho, and it got me interested. And so at some point,
Really?
I think in 2006, I was on that path trying to figure out what Osho was talking about. So then
Okay.
2008 comes along. I'm trying my hardest to have this whatever experience that Osho may be talking about, and some of these others. Well, I didn't really know any other mystical teachers back then, but there was
Yeah.
Osho, and there was maybe the odd thing that I would read here and there. And I
Yeah.
wanted whatever that was. I wanted that experience,
Yeah.
and I'm trying really hard at this. So I'm doing the entheogen. I have my headphones on. Nothing happens. An hour and a half passes by. I remember getting frustrated and turning off the headphones and just sat there in misery pretty much. As I'm sitting there, I don't know what something just happened. I'm sitting there, and then all of a sudden I realized that I was God. Just boom, I was just out of nowhere. Boom, I'm the most high.
Yeah.
Everything around me was divine. Anything I looked at was divine. Um, it was the most miraculous experience of my entire life at that time in 2008. I walked out of my
Mm-hmm.
room. I walked past my kids' room. I looked at my two boys. All I saw was God. I went into the
Mm-hmm.
bathroom. I looked at the in the mirror. All I saw was God. The mirror was God. The air that I was breathing was God. I
Everything.
looked at the
Yeah.
toilet. It was God. Everything was God. It was just absolutely mind blowing. It lasted probably for about 4 hours. 4 hours passed. I come back down. I couldn't believe what took place. I thought I went insane, and I kept it to myself for about 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, 2 weeks later, I'm at work. I see my coworker. I pull him aside. It's the guy. I have to tell you something. He's the first person I told. I told him about the
Mm-hmm.
experience, and he said, "Holy shit, that's incredible." I'm like, "I know. You don't understand how incredible this was." And then I remember telling this to a participant of mine, and I remember the participant who actually became one of my best friends, who you know as well. He said,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you experienced, I want that too." So, the whole thing that has a story on its own. But
Mm-hmm.
after that, um, I kept trying to see if I can have that experience again. I kept up with my meditation practices, and there was a few times where I would try uh, to see if I can do the combination of the brainwave entrainment and the entheogen. Nothing happened. So I just kept on going for the next probably about 2 years, and then 2 years later, it happened
Mm-hmm.
again, and then uh,
Wow.
2 weeks after that, it happened again. Um,
Mm.
after that, after that, and the reason why I'm not going to tell you the details of those experiences only because
Yeah.
it will lead up to something bigger. So,
Yes.
so this was 2010 at this point. So this is 2010. There was a couple of people I met along the line, and then 2012, something huge happened where I said, okay, I'm not going to get into all the details. Some of these people are probably watching right now, so I'm not going to expose anyone. But
I heard you.
a group of people, let's say, a group of people had access
Mhm.
to NNDMT. And so they asked me if I knew anything about it. And I said, I know about NNDMT. I've never tried it myself, but I know about it. I've read a lot about it. Um,
Yeah.
so they said, okay, we're going to try it out. Do you want to come with us? I was like, sure, I'll come and supervise, but I'm not going to try it myself. All right, so I came out to supervise, and everyone's trying this NNDMT. And the reason why I'm using the actual term NNDMT because
Yes. Yes.
people may have heard of 5-MeO-DMT, and these are two different substances. There's NN-DMT and there's 5-MeO-DMT. So they're trying out
Yeah.
this DMT. People are having these mind-blowing experiences. And I said, you know what? Give me that DMT and let me try this thing out. Let me try. I'm so curious what I need to try. Let me just give it to me. So the person who had access to the DMT gave me the DMT, and
Mm-hmm.
what happened was a very short moment, but what happened was just incredible. So I'm laying
Yeah.
there on the grass. We're outside in the park, and I'm laying there in the grass,
Yeah.
and I actually felt like I became one with the grass, and I can feel all the
Right.
worms and the insects coming out of the soil, which was actually
Yeah.
coming out of my own being. It was
Yeah.
incredible. So I
Yeah.
came out of it, and he said, what happened? I told him what happened, and he said, that's not it. I'm like, what? I was like, that
No.
experience wasn't it? He goes, that wasn't it. I'm like, okay. So he
Mm-hmm.
said, sit back for a bit, wait for about an hour, and we're going to go again. So he went through testing all these other people, and they're going through their thing. And then an hour later, I go into his vehicle. He gives me um, this DMT, which you have to smoke. Um, I think I just took one puff, went in, and then boom, transformed, I transcended to this other realm, and this other realm had this tree, and this tree had fruits, and the fruits were all these
Mm-hmm.
cosmic babies that were growing out of the tree. From the fruit, there
Mm-hmm.
as they got as the fruit ripened, the babies were born and they were formed, and I realized I was one of those babies off the tree. Um,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
then I tried to, and then the tree was a mother-like type of tree. So the mother, I realized it was my
Mm-hmm.
mom from a cosmic realm or something. And then the tree transformed
Yeah.
into this giant godlike being. So I'm looking at this godlike being, and this godlike being was made out of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of smaller beings, and they all had their arms crossed, and they're all singing a tone like just coming out of their voices,
Mm-hmm.
just thousands and thousands of this thing, making
Yeah.
up this
Mm-hmm.
giant god, probably the size of the CN Tower. Um,
Yeah.
this giant being had locks coming out of its head, and each lock had eyes within the locks. Um, his arms was made out of, they resembled tree branches that were intertwined that made up the arms, and the roots
Mm-hmm.
were intertwined into two legs that were sitting in a lotus pose. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm staring at this thing, mind blown, and it just looked down at me. And as it looked down at me, I turned into water. I was absorbed into its roots, and then I came out of the experience.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just got up. I'm crying, I'm laughing, and I just ran down the street. Everyone saw this. Everyone was there to witness it. I'm running down the street, just bawling my eyes out after this experience, and everyone is like, What's going on with him? That didn't happen to us. Why is he acting like this?" It was absolutely incredible. It was just incredible. Um,
Mm-hmm.
After that, to make a long story short, we're running these experiments with the NMDMT, and then it moved on to other types of entheogens, and things of that sort. And then
Yeah.
this is where it gets trippy. This is
Yeah.
where it's not so exciting, at least from the standpoint of joy or happiness or bliss or anything like that.
Yes.
I
Yes.
start to experience like the dark night of the soul. So now I'm
Mm-hmm.
experiencing myself going through the layers of the unresolved material that I haven't dealt with. So I'm dealing with fear, I'm
Yes.
dealing with insecurities, I'm dealing with a broken heart of the people who broke up with me in relationships, I'm dealing with
Mm-hmm.
personal racism, dealing with all that stuff. All that stuff is coming up of things that I had to endure um, through the acts of other people, and I'm feeling physical abuse, all that stuff from childhood came up to the surface,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just this deep torment of me going through this personal thing. Um,
Yeah.
Weeks later, or maybe months later, I can't remember, it happened again. So I'm going through this period of going through all this stuff, of all this guilt,
Yeah.
shame,
Yeah.
everything coming out of my system. Eventually,
Mm.
this kept happening over and over again. But then it wasn't just me. At this point, I'm now collecting. I'm connecting into a collective. So I'm feeling the shame, the
Yeah.
pain, and the sorrow of everyone. But it got even deeper than
Yes.
that. I start to experience the pain and suffering of all people, and
Yeah.
all animals, all beings, everything. I
Mm.
experienced
Mm-hmm.
from the outside and the inside. I experienced all forms of abuse, all forms of trauma, all forms of assaults, assassinations, genocide, lynchings, slavery, the abuse of women, the brutalization to animals. I experienced all atrocities. I experienced even natural disasters like earthquakes and tornadoes and everything. I experienced the whole
Mhm.
world ending and all of that. That, yeah, it got to the point where the the, the pain went in so deep that in that moment I could have easily taken my own life. That's how deep
Yeah,
this thing
for
got.
sure. Yeah.
Because I wasn't just carrying my pain, it was carrying the pain of everything and everyone, psychological, physical, mental. I could feel every whip over my back. I could feel my throat being slit. I can feel myself
Mm-hmm.
being thrown off a building, being everything, just everything. I remember trying to be conceived and then just being killed. I remember all of that in an
Yeah.
abortion situation. I remember every
Yeah.
rapist, every rapist, and every person being raped. I can feel all of that, just everything.
Feel that. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but then something great happened. After when all that stuff happened, I experienced the absolute total opposite of that, where I start to experience, and this was the first
The
time this happened
opposite.
after this type of atrocity. I could feel
Yeah.
absolute bliss,
Yeah.
peace, harmony, um, everything, just everything, anything that you can think of that was positive, that came about. And this was happening over and over again. So this is happening within a 11-year period of this happening over and over again. So there
Yeah.
are days
Yeah.
where you saw me and I just came the day before I just came out of a whole experience of atrocities, and I
Yeah.
just had to still do my job and do whatever I
Yeah.
was doing with
Yeah.
Rise
Yeah.
and everything that we were doing back then. But that's what I was going through. But then it got deeper, and then I was going through weeks of fatigue as I'm doing my meditation practice. A lot of different strange things started happening. Kidney pains, which were so brutal. There's some of the worst physical pain I've ever gone through in my entire life. And this happened a number of times. Um, so many things happened in that time period. And then I'm going through. There were moments where my body would get hot, would get too hot, or would get too cold. Even in the wintertime, I could be outside in the cold, in the dead cold of winter, and I can just melt snow. Even if I was bare naked, I could melt snow. It was my body got to temperatures that were so hot that I couldn't even feel the cold. And that happened for probably about a good 2 years within that 11-year period.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of strange things happen. And then, of course, I'm having all these mystical type dreams, lucid dreams. Um, there was even the time I thought I was experiencing an earthquake and nothing happened. I
Nothing is
remember
happening.
feeling the whole room shaking and I'm running down the stairs shouting, "Earthquake!" And everyone's looking at me like I was weird. Nothing was
Well,
happening.
yeah. Looking at me like, what?
Just, yeah, just all these weird things were happening. So
Mm-hmm.
now at this point now, this is now I started to get into neurofeedback training. So I'm still doing my everyday meditation. And somewhere down, and in this time period, Yinnergy became a thing. I just totally forgot
Mm-hmm.
to even mention it, but meditation became a thing. It was something that I created, which is a combination of low carrier frequency, which I was already doing, with the combination of vortex-based mathematics from a mathematician by Marco Rodin. But I didn't. Even, but you can ask me that later. So. Um, where am I? So I'm experimenting, still doing energy, doing all this other stuff. At some point, I started doing sessions with ayahuasca with the shaman. So I ended up doing 12 sessions of
Mm-hmm.
ayahuasca with the shaman. And then I picked up neurofeedback training, which I was doing on the side as well. And neurofeedback training is its own technology, which is something that I
Yeah.
now do for other people. But uh, while I was doing this neurofeedback training, and now this is 2019. This is now 2019. So
Mm-hmm.
11 years have passed from the time I had my first spiritual awakening until 2019. And I got this email, and the email I can't remember. It was from. It's not coming to my mind who it came from, but they said in the email that this spiritual guru by the name of Paramahamsa Vishwananda was coming to town. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Paramahamsa Vishwananda is a spiritual guru. He lives out of Germany, and the claim
Okay.
is that he does this thing called darshan, in some sense is similar to Shaktipat. Well, Shaktipat is where just for your audience who don't know, that Shaktipat is a thing where a person has the capability of awakening the Kundalini energy within you. That could be through
Yeah.
touch, that could be through looking in your eyes, that could be them saying a mantra to you, something. and it could awaken your Kundalini energy. But darshan is more like a guru who gives you a blessing just by looking into your eyes. So
Mhm.
this guy's coming to town. It was like September 2nd of 2019. Yeah, September 2nd of 2019. This man's coming to town. So I said, I want to go see him. So I booked I accepted the invitation. I went to go see him, and there was like tons of people there, hundreds of people there waiting to receive darshan from this guy. And I thought it
Mhm.
was weird, just like why is everyone all lined up to see this man?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I stand in the line. Um, well, even before that, he comes out. People were falling at his feet, kissing his feet, doing. I was like, why?
Wow.
Who can be that special that people are doing this with this individual? So
Love it.
I'm intrigued,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm intrigued. So I wait in the line. Uh, it's probably about an hour later, maybe longer. It's my
Mm-hmm.
turn. I go up. He asks me some questions. He looks into my eyes, and then as I'm walking off, I can feel something go through my body. Nothing major, but just
Wow.
like I can feel some
Mm-hmm.
twitches, which were very
Mm-hmm.
similar to a part that I missed out. Is totally very similar to that same year and the year prior where I started to experiment with 5-MeO DMT, which is different than NN-DMT.
Yep. Yep.
And those 5-MeO DMT sessions were absolutely extraordinary. It's just the greatest things I've ever done in my entire life up to that point. So when I'm walking off from Paramahamsa Vishwananda, I felt some of the same stuff, which people may refer to
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
Kriya, when your body does these uncontrollable movements without your intent.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, there's something here with this darshan thing. So I walk off. Um, weeks for weeks, I'm going through some of these sensations. Um, Sometimes my hands would do its own thing without my intention. My chest would move on its own. My legs would fly up and can almost kick someone without my intent. All these strange things would happen, and sometimes a smile on my face would appear without my intent. So just this big smile on my face. All these weird
Mm-hmm.
things were happening with my face and my body. Um, I'm still doing my meditation. I'm intrigued by what this man just did. Nothing out of the blue came out of that at that point. But then by the time we got into December of 2019, this was December 14th of 2019, I put on my headphones to do my
Mm-hmm.
meditation with Yinnergy. I finished my hour. I took off the headphones. That's what had happened. Um, what I experienced, if you can say I experienced, because I didn't experience anything, because there was nothing to experience. But it sounds weird as I'm saying it, but
I know.
um,
I get it.
it was an experience or a non-experience where I was absolutely everything in existence. I was every
Yeah.
person, I was every cell, I was every molecule, I was every particle, I was every atom, I was every
Yeah.
vibrating string, I was every blade of grass, I was every animal, every microscopic creature, I was every drop of rain, I was every grain of sand, I was every speck of dust. I was the oxygen itself. I was every country. I was every planet. I was every solar system. I was every galaxy. I was every universe because there's a multiverse. I was every universe and every
Yeah.
multiverse. I was
Mm-hmm.
absolutely everything in existence. Um, Not only that, but everything that happened in that experience became a singularity. So my subjective
Mm-hmm.
self was the same. It was the exact same as my objective self. Myself was the exact same as you. I was every I was past, present, future. I was both God and man. I was the sky, I was the ground. I was it, it just became the absolute. Um I keep saying that I was this, but at this point I'm experiencing ego death. So there was no me left.
Yeah.
I psychologically died in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I psychologically died. There was no distinction between anything. There was no distinction between me, you, past, present, future was all the same. As I said, macro was the same. An inch was the same as the longest length. I was every form of width,
Yep.
height, everything. It didn't even matter. It was the absolute. It was every situation, every event, every action, every word ever spoken. I was every
Every
Big
month.
Bang that ever took place. I was every Big Bang prior to that one, prior to that one, prior to that one. I was every dinosaur, every reptile. I was absolutely every. I was every alien.
Everything.
I was all forms of technology. I was mathematics. I was language. I was geometry. I was computer science. I was every movie that's ever made, every movie that was thought of, every movie that never made it to the cinema. I was that. I was every story ever told and every story untold.
Mhm.
I was every sex act. I was every form of love. I was I was every pair of shoes. I was every type of garment you can think of. I was every sacred book that ever was ever written. I was the speaking
Mhm.
of tongues. I was
Yeah.
Sanskrit. I was English. I was Arabic. I was everything. Anything. I was all of that. I was everything. I was also nothing at the same time.
Anything your
Anything
mind
in your
could
mind
go
can
to.
can
Yes.
dig up or not
Anything your
dig up. I
mind, I
was that.
know, yeah.
Yeah, I was
You're
absolutely
there.
of the absolute, of the
Yeah.
absolute, of the absolute, of the absolute. This was by far the most incredible experience
Yeah.
of my existence. I don't even know how long it lasted
Yeah.
for. Um, so now I'm coming back into myself. Myself is now coming back from this ego death. And I realize that
Hmm.
I'm back or
Hmm.
somewhat in my body. And I realized that I lost all control of my body movements. So I'm having a full seizure at this point. As I'm on my bed having this full out seizure, everything. I lost control of everything. My tongue is out, my leg is
Yeah.
twisted, my arms is
Yeah.
up, my leg, my body, everything. I just lost
Yeah.
control of everything. And I watched myself doing it, but it didn't mean anything to me. I just watched myself do it. But then after that, after having the most miraculous experience of my entire life, something
Hmm.
else happened. So after going through all of that, I experienced a full blown Kundalini awakening after that experience. So that
Mm.
was all I needed. I didn't need anything else. So now a full blown Kundalini experience happened, and now I understood what yoga was really all about. That yoga was the union, you uniting
Yeah.
with the divine,
Union,
like
yes, exactly. Yes,
fully
yes.
unite with the
Like
divine,
fully one,
and then
yeah.
just totally
Mm.
one. And my I can feel my body doing every yoga pose that could ever exist simultaneously. So it's not like I was doing them one after each
Yeah.
other. I'm doing all of them
No,
simultaneously somehow
together. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah,
And if I moved, the universe moved. If the universe moved, I moved. I was totally one with the universe.
oneness,
As I'm going through
oneness, yes.
this experience, I look up. I probably was looking up in the ceiling. I don't remember if I saw a ceiling or not. And light petals made out of light were pouring out of my skull. Trillions and
Yeah,
trillions and trillions of these light petals were pouring out of my skull. And as they dropped to the bed and dropped to the ground, I watched them dissipated and even made a sound like as they all dropped to the ground
yeah.
and to on my bed and on the ground, everything. Um, I look at my body and my
Hmm.
body I'm looking at my skin. I can see the cells. I can see the molecules within the cells. I can see the atoms within the molecule.
Yeah.
I can see the particles within
Mhm.
the atoms. I can see everything. And
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
simultaneously blossomed out of my body. And with a loud voice, every one of my cells, molecules, atoms, particles, subatomic particles, everything shouted out with a loud voice, I am God.
Mhm.
Mind blowing, mind blowing experience. Um, that's what changed me. That's what got me. I've never
That's it?
experienced
That's
love.
all?
Well, something continued for the next 2 years
I'm just
after that.
kidding.
Yeah, but I know that's all. Something continued for the next 2 years after that. I wake up every day in cold sweat, or for 209 days, I'd still have smaller experiences, like
Yeah,
smaller levels of
yeah, for
samadhi that would
sure.
happen every single day. That type of
Yeah.
stuff would happen, but nothing.
Hmm.
I had many experiences after that, but nothing compared to what happened on
Of
that day of
course.
December 14th, 2019. So that's when the whole thing happened, the whole shebang. That's when I experienced what they may call moksha, nirvana, um,
Yeah,
Bodhi. That's why I named my book Bodhi in the Brain, and that's why I named my organization Bodhi. It's all
yeah.
inspired by that moment. Bodhi, for those that don't know, is when Buddha sat under the tree. It was called the Bodhi tree.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
they use that word to associate with awakening. So one can become a bodhisattva, where one dedicates themselves for the lives of all human beings. And they would promise, in this case, they promise not to become enlightened until all sentient beings become enlightened. So that's where
Yeah.
you get the term bodhisattva from. But Bodhi is what
Yeah.
this the name that inspired me to name this organization and the book that I came up with 2 years ago, and so on and so on. But that day was by far the greatest day of my entire life, and things
Yeah.
haven't been the same since that day.
I love it. I love not just that the experience today, but all the leading up, the leading up to it. And all the little awakenings,
Yeah,
because I always tell people the process of awakening, it's just like sometimes, you set your alarm clock and sometimes you hit the snooze button, or sometimes you wake up before your alarm and you're like, okay, got a little more time, you fall back asleep, and then you wake up again. And sometimes you just don't wake up at the time and get up and go. Sometimes we fall back asleep and then you're like, oh shoot, I fell back asleep. It's really like that. Sometimes you
yeah, that's
have
a good analogy.
when you're younger, you had your little awakening and then you don't even realize that you kind of lull back to sleep somehow. So then something else happens in life until you finally like get your
So
behind
you
off
get
the
it.
bed and get ready, and now you're like out in the world, right? Doing
Yeah,
what you're supposed to be doing. But
that's when you show up.
that's when you show up. Yeah, definitely. There's so much of what you were saying that resonated with me, if not everything. But um, I remember when I had my ND, and we've talked about this briefly before, that how
Hmm.
the similarities, right, between what I experienced and what you experienced in 2008. And um and one of the things for me, like when I came back into my body, it was like all of these scriptures, right? I already had a different understanding about scriptures, but after that experience, I was like, yo, I don't know if anyone's interpreting the Bible right. I don't know if anyone's
That's when you
interpreting.
really got it, right? You really
Yeah,
got
I
it.
was like, oh
Yeah,
my, like everything you're saying there, I was this, I was that, I was, and it's just like, well, if you just say I am, it takes care of all of the I was. And a lot of
I am.
people like
Yeah,
that, yeah, that's one of the things that happened with me. Is like all of these ways of trying to describe things, I was able to see how even ancient sayings, know thyself, all of these
you know
things that we
myself.
say so easily, right? It's like after that experience, it was like, wow, know thyself. Like you want to know God, know thyself. And you just, oh, know thyself, know thyself. But until you get it, until something happens where you have one of those experiences some way, somehow, where you realize like, yeah, what part of you isn't God? You just won't understand, know thyself. You won't get it. You won't get I am. I am that I am, and then
That I am. That I am. That I am.
that's right. And in not understanding those things, it means you don't understand your own power, right? But for some reason, it's a beautiful process to forget and then to remember. Must be.
That's it. Yeah, that you're right
Yeah,
too. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
people are not doing it wrong, so that's part of the process.
That's
To
it. That is it.
wake up and forget until you always
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, that's it. So okay, that was amazing. So I do have, well, just to tie all that in that you shared. How did everything that you just shared, especially that final, well, not that it was the only one, but that big, your Bodhi experience, right? Um, how did that really, like, now it's been a few years, it's passed, right, since then. How would you say it's affected your understanding of yourself, like self and source? Because you did go through the whole I am experience, but then now, okay, you're back, you're in your body, you're here living regular life like everyone else, but you have all of this understanding that's come to you. So how do you now, from today, like this perspective, everything you've experienced and all that you've known and all of your conclusions, how would you say you view self and most high? Is there a change in how you see everything? Obviously there is, but how would you describe that, how you see it now?
Well, that very thing that you're asking, that stuck from since 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that from 2008, that's when that took place. That always
Yes.
stayed. It's
Yes.
just at this point now in 2024, 2019,
Yeah.
um, uh, what changed was I realized in that moment, and it's still with me today,
Mm-hmm.
that when I say that everything is everything, um, I, I think I now say that everything that's in our what we call Maya, the separation of everything that's within Maya,
Mm-hmm.
is equally the same thing. So God is not any different than my cell phone because the realization I had in 2008 was I am one with God. I am the Most High. Everything is the Most High. Yes, but what does everything really mean? All right.
Yeah.
So, but now it became to the point where when I say everything, I really mean that literally, that everything in
Yeah.
the entire universe and outside of the universe, or whatever you want to look at it. So, or if you want to say within existence, outside of existence, is exactly the same thing. So some people will
Yeah.
say, well, no, I'm a part of God. I'm like, that's true too. It just depends on what realm
Yeah.
we're talking about, what level we're talking about. So that's also true, right? So when I say that God is
Yes.
the
Yeah.
absolute, it must include and not include everything. So the very, even
Yes.
the very idea that we are a part of God is also true. Even the idea that
Yeah.
we are not God at all is also true. God is within me is also true. God doesn't exist is also true. God existing is also true. All of it is true. All the Eastern philosophies
Mm.
that people have talked about, and they all disagree to some level, some degree, they're all true. It just depends on what perspective we're attacking it from.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that was the difference. That this experience was the absolute. I was all knowing. I was all seeing. Even though in that experience I didn't see anything. There was nothing. It was
Yeah.
just a feeling. It was
There's
just
nothing to
this
see.
deep. There's nothing to see because there's
Yeah.
nothing outside of me,
Yeah.
right? If I'm everything and
Exactly.
everything
Yeah.
is me, there's nothing to see because to see has to be outside of you. So everything was everything.
Yes.
This is beyond seeing. This was beyond hearing. It was beyond the six senses. It was
Yeah.
beyond the 32 senses, if you want to add all the senses in there. It was beyond, and it
Mm-hmm.
included everything. So even though it was the absolute of the absolute, it still included separation because that's part of the absolute as well. So everything and everything was in that experience, which was different than what happened in 2008 and all this, the sessions that led to that. Because within that time period, the 11-year period, about almost 60 awakenings took place within that time period,
Yeah.
all profound within its own right. But then
Of
this happened, and
course.
this
Yeah.
it transcended and it included all those experiences and more. So within that experience, all your bodies are included in that. Your physical body, your subtle bodies, your
Yes.
ether body, your astral body, emotional body, mental body, causal body, non-dual
Mm-hmm.
body becomes one.
Mm-hmm.
Your bodies become one with all
One.
gross
Yeah.
bodies and subtle bodies, and on and on and on. Time and space becomes one. Location becomes one. So every person, place, or thing becomes one thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where it wasn't like that to that degree in 2008.
Exactly.
It was just like a
Yes.
personal experience of me becoming one
I
with God,
totally agree.
whereas now the universe is now one with God.
Yeah.
So I think that would probably be the difference between those two time periods.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I totally get it. Um, when I listened to you, as I listened to you talk, I was thinking, um, I remember when people would, ask me, did you see God, when you died, right? Did you see God, Yandea? And I'm like, no, no. And then it's like, but I was not unaware. I was not unaware of God, you know what I mean? But even there in that space, there was no, it's so funny, right? Because like when you have these experiences, you just know. You literally when you say like you
I
just
just
know
know.
everything. You
Hmm.
just know everything. And when you come back into this body and then you have to explain to people or try to, then you have to start using words. And then, the words you're using, they have their idea of the words, and you're like, oh, great, like it's gonna get messed up. Why am I even talking? Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, when I would say, no, I didn't see God because I didn't have to see God. It wasn't
Didn't have to
necessary.
see it.
It wasn't necessary
Yeah.
for me to see God. I I when I got into that place, I knew everything. I remembered everything, all of my incarnations, why I came
Hmm.
to Earth this time, where I wanted to go. But I was focused on I came for a specific reason, and that reason I came for while I was here, I didn't do it all the way. I didn't do it to the fullness in all my remembrance, you know? And so now that I had remembered everything, I'm like, what? I need to go, I need to go back and finish what I initially went there for. And I had no fear of anything, but all before that time, like you said, there were other awakenings, other experiences along the way. A lot of people are afraid of dying or doing certain things because they fear a hell. You know, they fear. I had already in 2017, I had already gone through my whole hell experience and realized like, okay, there is that doesn't even exist. What it is a state of mind, right? Because everything is existing within our own selves, put it that way, for lack of better
Yeah.
words. And so
Yeah.
people experience what they have to. People experience their own consciousness, their own condemnation, their own state of what's really within themselves, and then they still have to work it out. You know, it's just that now you're working it out outside of your body. Like you don't have this realm. You're just left with your own mind, you know? So any
Yeah.
condemnation you have for yourself, you know, in this space, we have the chance to be delusional, right? We have the chance to blame other people. We have the chance to turn a blind eye, to put it off. But when you're outside of this realm and all you're in is truth, if if you are not cleared of that stuff, you're going to be like hyper focused on the lie that you live, because it's such contrast to the place that you're in, which is now you're in the all-knowing place. You're in the God place. You're in the mind of God. You are the mind of God. You're the mind of God. You're the heart of God, all of that. And so there's no issue, like I tell people all the time, like there's no issue with most high. Like everything is everything. All is well. It is when we are, like I said, like hyper focused on self in a sense. And I'm speaking knowing that, man, I just hope these words are being understood. But you know,
Everyone will interpret it differently. So yeah,
you know what
it's
I
nothing you
mean?
can do.
It's
Yeah.
nothing. You gotta release that. You gotta just release it, you know. What do you say? Who has ears to hear will hear. Right? But
Hmm.
that's the thing. It's like when we're hyper focused and we're not moving in that in love, then, and even that love is like that unforgiveness, right? Even towards our own selves. Then when you get over into the other side, you still have to I want to say it's like it's almost like, if you want to think of it as like raising, it's still, you still have to be in a certain vibration, for lack of better words again. You still have to be in a certain vibration, a certain frequency to blissfully, calmly exist in the all-knowing place. And anything that you have within self that is unresolved, which means that it hasn't, yes, unresolved, it's gonna appear there so that it can be resolved, so that you can be in the place of bliss. And so when people have things like unforgiveness, guilt, shame, all of these things within themselves here, being on the other side doesn't just release you from that. You still have to go through a process to release that thing. And some people experience like just wonderful bright colors, and that's all they need to release it. You know what I mean? It just works, right? That's all they need. Some people hear sounds, some people see beings, some people have to go through a hell process. You know, like everyone has a different thing, just depending on who they are. Just that's what their consciousness is creating for them, right?
Depending
To
on the karma.
say it again,
Depending on the karma.
depending, all of that, all of it. So, you know, I think it's amazing how, another thing is, I would tell people, like, you don't have to die. You don't have to go through what I went through to come to these conclusions, because I can also look back and be like, man, there were so many times in my life where I could see that Most High was guiding to those realizations. But I had things within myself, programmings and different things that made it like, that's I don't know if I could believe it. Like you said, God is inside, God is outside. God is like, it's also that. So sometimes it's just so the programming that we have, especially like religion and stuff, makes it so difficult for us to understand all perspectives. You know, it just makes it so hard for us to understand that. So we're stuck into, well, God is like this. And when we talk about love, like there's that thing, God is love, right? I think that was yours the last time on the other episode, God is love. We mentioned that sometimes when people have a definition of love because of what they've experienced love to be in this world, and then they think of God, oh, if God is love, then whatever that definition of love is, it could be flawed, it could be missing a whole bunch of other things. They are just going to take that definition and say, oh, that's what God is. And then so now God has had to fit into their small little understanding of love instead of going the other route to say, what is God? And allow your mind to expand by everything you're seeing, everything you're experiencing, the good, the bad, everything. And if all of that you are experiencing is God, then now you could say, oh, then if God is love, then that means love is all of that too. You know what I mean? So it's one is like, it's a restriction of what love is only based on my experience. And then God has to fit into my experience. Where, no, maybe let me try to wrap my mind around what God is. And you'll realize you can't wrap your mind around what God is. Then you have to have that same understanding. Can I wrap my mind around what love is? Because that has to match up if God is love, right? So I feel it's amazing that, well, I asked you, what was your experience as far as how you view self and source, but now after experiencing all of that, how do you view love? And I know we said God is love, but how do you view love in the sense, like when you look at meeting a stranger, your children, you know, the work you do, all of that stuff, how did it change your experience of love?
Well, it's not like when I look at another person, it's not like I look at that person and I say to myself, I love that person. It's not necessarily like that. It's more like everything in a whole. But at the same time, as I say that, if I'm dealing with a situation with another person, even if it's a person who I don't like, I have empathy for that person. So it's not like it's I love this person. It's not like that, but it's like I understand where that person is coming from. I have empathy. I can walk in that person's shoes. So it doesn't matter who it is. It could be my worst enemy. I understand where that person's coming from. So if I understand where that person's coming from, um, there's no room for hate in that moment. Something may happen. I may have to defend myself. I may have to do all those things. But as I'm doing it, I have compassion and I have empathy for the person, whoever I'm dealing with, or if it's someone I'm hearing on the news or whoever the case is. So sometimes I catch myself defending people all the time. Even if I don't know the person, because I understand where the person's coming from. Because I literally walked in their shoes. I know what it's like to be that person. Yeah, so it's coming from that place as opposed to using my imagination to think of empathy. It's not even like that. I literally walked in that person's shoes. I know where that person's coming from. So it's from that. It's that type of understanding of love, at least from that standpoint in regards to how I view other people in my present separate state.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, and I think that um, when you're able to see yourself in other people, when you're, whether it's through that experience or just being a person who stops and says, I wonder why. I wonder what would cause that person. What are some things that can cause that person to do that thing? And if I knew that background story, I wouldn't feel as negatively towards them as possible. Sometimes just taking that approach will help you to,
taking a simple approach can
exactly. Yes. And
stretch your mind
sometimes,
a little bit.
exactly. And sometimes this is something that people could try, because I feel like, you know, Most High really responds with this. If you pray, you know, or meditate on this, ask it knowing that you will receive it, because it's part of your expansion of mind and heart. If you say, okay, let's say you're experiencing a negative thing with somebody, and the thing about feeling, like you mentioned that word hate, and the thing about feeling this vibration is not something that needs to be ignored. I feel like when we feel those strong feelings, it's 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 a it's a sign for you to say, okay, oh, I'm really feeling that there. What is inside of me here? What is this? What is happening in here? And then if you say, when I go to sleep, right? When I go to rest, let me understand this person or this thing or this situation, whatever it is I'm being very judgmental about, even. And you
Mhm.
can have a dream that literally puts you exactly in that scenario, gives it to you from a whole different perspective. And you'll wake up and be like, damn, okay, I get it. I understand why someone might do that. Like, so, like for me, anytime now, it's like anytime I'm not staying in a place of, um, it's not that not staying in a place of love, but anytime I have just a judgment, but the judgment will be like, I don't get that. I don't understand why someone would do that. Anytime I have that moment, guarantee you, if it doesn't happen to me before I go to sleep, by the time I wake up the next morning, I'll be like, okay. So, and I tell my husband, I tell him the dream, whatever, and I'm like, that's crazy. I never thought that that would be a situation. And what I've come to learn about that, Morgan, is that sometimes we could have spiritual experiences and we have like these big aha moments. But then when we have to take, it's so much, when we have to take all of this epiphany and bring it into our everyday walking, waking life. It's like you have this big revelation of what love is. And then you might find yourself like cussing off somebody who's cutting you off. You know what I mean? And then you might have a moment of like, okay, feeling guilty because I know what love is. Why did I react that way? Why did I whatever? And I feel sometimes like we don't realize that just because you have a spiritual experience, it doesn't mean that there's not time for that knowledge to integrate into your body. You get what I'm saying? Because our body, we have habits, there's so much stuff, like you were saying, after you had your, I think, initial experience, you had like weeks, months, maybe years of different things coming up. You get what I'm saying? Everybody experiences um something different after an experience. So I feel like we need to, not, and not you, obviously, I'm not saying, when I say like we, I'm speaking everybody out there, we need to remember that as we have these experiences, it doesn't mean that you're going to be automatically changed. Like
And
everything is
it
going
doesn't
to
mean, it also does, it doesn't mean that you stop being human,
change.
right?
Talk about
Yeah,
that. Talk
because
about that.
you're having a human experience.
That is it.
God is pretty much trying to do the opposite of itself. So if God is all perfect, God is having the experience of being imperfect. So even after you have an experience like that, it doesn't mean that all these things automatically changes.
Yeah.
What does happen, for at least for most people, they become aware. They become so aware they
Yes.
start to watch what they're doing, and even
Watch
as they're
a
doing it,
conscious. Yeah,
it's a
that
conscious
is it.
watching of what you're doing,
Yeah.
and you may end up doing
Yes.
things less because you become so aware of it. So
Yes.
you may still cuss
Yes.
someone out if someone cuts you off on the road. You may, if that's the thing that you did before awakening, you probably will still do that after awakening, but you may start doing it with
Yeah.
awareness to the point where you may not do it
Yeah.
anymore because you became so aware. And he's like, I understand where that's coming from within me, why I am cussing out the person the way I do, because not everyone cusses out a person when they get cut off, right? Everyone has a different way of
Yeah.
dealing with
Yeah.
that same
Yeah.
thing. But that
Yep.
may change for you, for that
Yep.
person, if they became aware of why they're doing it. It's a deep knowing of this is where it's coming from. I can
Yeah.
remember the first moment when
Yes.
I wasn't heard, when
Yes.
something bad happened to me, and I didn't feel heard. And this is the way how I
Yes.
express when someone cuts me
Yeah.
off on the road.
Yeah.
So it's different for everyone.
Yes.
But it also goes back to what I said last week about the psychological levels of development. Everybody are at different
Yes.
stages, and so everyone can have
Mm.
the same non-dual spiritual awakening, but there may be a um, different stages of the
Wow.
psychological levels of development. Some people may be stuck at archaic. Some people may be at a
Mm.
pluralistic. Some people may be at
Exactly.
integral. Some people may be at super integral. We're at different
Mm.
stages. So a person who's
Wow.
archaic happens to have this mind-blowing experience is going to still come back and be at archaic, but they have a little more awareness where they can move from archaic
Okay.
to
Yeah.
magical or to mythical,
Yeah.
move their way up,
Yeah.
move up the stages. So people have to understand that when people are talking about spiritual experiences or spiritual awakenings, that we're actually talking about two different things. There's awakening, which is the states of consciousness, and then there's the
Yeah.
psychological development stages of
Mhm.
archaic all the way up to integral, or from egocentric all the way up to cosmocentric. So these are
Yes.
two different things that some of them do intersect, but they're usually
Yeah.
two separate things. So that's why a person can have the highest level awakening and still come back and be very ignorant as human beings.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
right? But they still have to
You're
work on the
right.
psychological levels
You
of
gotta work
development
it out.
to get
Yeah.
themselves up to, so that both
Mm-hmm.
two
Mm-hmm.
things are matching up with each other, where you're at the highest level
Yeah.
psychological level of development and you're at the highest level of states of consciousness. And if the two can pair
Yeah.
up, now you're at a place where, that's a place where
Yeah.
humans should strive to get to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's gonna be
Oh,
rocky along
and
the way.
and you have to. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You can't rush to getting to there
You
because
can't
that's
rush to getting
ego,
it, right?
right? Like when
That's
you're,
ego.
yeah, you can't fake it. It's not a fake it till you make it thing. It's a genuine. You can't like again. It's all truth. It's a genuine moving. Now, I find like after, and tell me if this happened with you after after the NDE, right? I felt, and I don't even like call it NDE. I always say like closer. It actually is closer to life more than a near death. Closer to life is how it affected me. But
Yeah.
I found like when I came back into my body for like 2 weeks after, I say this is like my integration period because I was still going in and going out of my body. I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to hear anything on the TV. I didn't want to hear social media. I didn't want to hear any other voices. Like I was so sensitive. I could know exactly, well, this person's lying. Like I could just, I was so sensitive to um anything, especially that I was hearing. It's like I was able to feel, like I said, truth. I could distinctly know between the truth and a lie, and it's just like why like why is it necessary? Why is it necessary? Why can't we just be, why can't we just be? So in that time, a lot of people, and this is the whole thing, right? It's not judgment, but it's something that I can't I can't shake because in that 2 weeks, let's say like a lot of people who are on a spiritual journey, right? Because the kind of work I do. So I'm around a lot of people reach out to me for stuff and whatever the case may be. And it was so easy to see how people who are saying that they're on a spiritual journey or a spiritual awakening or any of these things, how delusional, how delusional, like it's a thing to do, it's a thing to say, it's a, you know what I mean? Like there's so it actually, I will say it this way: spirituality and religion, spirituality is actually cloaked now in more falseness than religion is. It's so
That's
crazy.
interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, cloaked, because see, like with religion, people could be like, okay, well, if you're a good Christian, you do this and that. If you're a good
Yeah.
Muslim, you do this and that. You're a good Hindu, you do this, you do that, right? And that's it. And so people, you're either doing it or you're not doing it. With
Yeah.
spirituality, because there's no like this and that, now people are just like, okay, what does it look like? Okay, I got my sage, I got my this, okay, go to a yoga class, go. So people are pulling from, I did my ayahuasca, I was over there in Costa Rica. And it
Hmm.
becomes this thing of like, okay, here's my resume of all the spiritual things I've done. You know, did you get this by that person? And did you meet this? And did you do that? And I meditate for these many hours. And it's like people are now, like what I was experiencing is this such a falseness that was so it was so deceptive, not necessarily to outside people. That's not the point. It's more deceptive to the people themselves. Like, like a person could be, let's say, Christianity. A person could go to church and they could sit down with their pastor in the pulpit and they could do all these things. But then after, they could go to the dance hall and they could smoke and drink and have fornication and everything. And they're not fooling themselves. They're like, oh, I know, I know what I'm doing. But with the spiritual thing, it's like the people themselves are deceiving themselves. Like they are also unaware. Do you get what I'm trying to say? It's like a deep, and I feel like it's they're lulling themselves back to a deeper sleep. So it's like people go through this awakening, like, oh, you know what? I feel something and whatever. And then instead of staying still and allowing for a genuine, and I don't want to, because every person's journey is different. At the end, people will go through their thing and realize, oh, that's what I did. But it's important to have I think it's important to have this discussion so that people could realize there's another way, right? When you have your awakening, you don't have to run off to do something spiritual, to be something spiritual. You are spirit, you are God, right? You are. So you can literally just stand still. You don't have to, is this thing that people do where they need to run off into an outside something. Do you get what I'm trying to say? They feel a need to find something outside themselves to validate, like themselves. And I'm like, you're totally missing it, because you're gonna come right back to it. You're gonna go through climbing all your mountains, diving through all your deepest oceans, and only to come right back to point A. Oh, it's right here. Oh, it's right here. I could have just gone within me. It's like, and found everything. So, but again, I know that all of us have different journeys, but I'm just wondering, it may be good. I think it definitely is good for people to have a choice. And some people don't realize that there is a choice to go within, as opposed to just run into finding another thing. Like they come out of religion and they're gonna join another religion called spirituality, or whatever the case is. So what do you think about that? Like, have you seen that? Like, what are your thoughts on what I'm trying to share?
Well, I'm empathetic to that as well. So I look at it as um, that's what God is choosing to do
Yeah, yeah,
through
that's
that
what I was
individual.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say that there's a difference between spirituality as authenticity and spirituality, the culture. A lot of people get caught up in the culture, the social part of spirituality, and think they're spiritual. But the culture of
Yes,
spirituality is not what we're speaking of. It's the
yes,
authenticity of
exactly.
spirituality. Yeah.
Right.
People get caught up in this because they'll dot the I's and cross the T's. They'll do the check mark. They'll do the checklist. Am I doing A, B, C, D? Da, 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 da. It's like, well, you're following culture. You're following the social aspects of spirituality. That's not true
Hmm.
spirit. There's nothing really necessarily wrong with that, but that's not true spirituality, right? That's not the search. That's not the seeking. That's not the search of self. So a lot of people get that twisted, and just because they follow a culture of spirituality, they think they're spiritual. And it's like, well, no.
That's it.
I would prefer that than someone committing mass murders, of course,
Oh, for
but
sure.
it's
Hey,
not.
what?
If you had to pick one over the other, I'd pick this. But that's not the transformation, right?
Yeah,
That's not the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
transformation.
Oh,
Yeah. So
let's
people have
make
to,
that clear.
yeah, let's make that clear. I would prefer this. If you want to be on the surface, a spiritual surface type of person, I prefer that over some of the other crazy stuff
Yeah,
that I've
yeah,
heard. But
yeah.
people have to realize that there's a difference between the culture of spirituality or the subculture of spirituality, the sociology levels of spirituality versus true spirituality, which is you realizing yourself as spirit. And people may have to go
Hmm.
through that route to get there, as long as they get
Yeah,
there. So yeah, so it's and
that is
some level, everyone
interesting.
probably gets caught up in it on some level where you have to do the checklist. But you
Yeah,
realize at the end of the
definitely.
checklist that that's not it.
Yeah, that's it. And I think, um, I sometimes think back to when I was like really heavily into Christianity, and I would have people, who were Christians, and then now they weren't, but they'd be like, trust me, like God doesn't live in a church, Yandea. Like God, like all of this stuff they would say to me, and I'm like, you're backslidden. You need Jesus. And then so after I think back and I'm like, that's so crazy. Like I am literally that person now. So when people who may be, like heavily in church, whatever, and when I talk to them, they're like, they view me as a backslider. And I'm just like, oh, I get it. I understand, man. I was there. I had the judgments, I had everything. And it's just like, what would I have said to myself? And I'm like, there is nothing you could have said to yourself. So love that person and let them go through their journey, because I was so I was so indoctrinated, right? Like it's only my own journey. It's only spirit who could have entangled that thing that I was in. You know what I'm saying? And so I I I have great compassion for people in all beliefs, because I don't think that really there's much of a difference with beliefs. It kind of all happens the same way, where we're searching for something and we think that thing will be an answer, and we get involved with all our heart and soul, and then we get tangled up, or we're just born into families that indoctrinate us, or you know what I mean? Like it happens somehow,
That's right.
but
Yeah.
it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what it is, we all encounter it the same way. So, our untangling, how we go through that process of untangling and figuring out and getting our way back home, it's a beautiful journey. At the end of the day, everyone we'll sit by the fire and tell our stories and, and laugh, Do you
Yeah.
remember, do you remember, because you said something when you were talking to, you mentioned that, um, yeah, that during that time of your downs, well, going through your dark night of the soul, like you still had to keep it up because you had to go to work, you had your family, you have your things you have to do, right? And I was
Mhm.
thinking when you said that, like, oh, you probably saw I probably saw you in one of those times, like the day after or whatever the case is. I was thinking, I remember the first day that I met you. Do you remember that? The first day? No, it's too long.
I remember the first time I met you, but I think the first time I met you was at Resource Center.
It
It was on a
was.
Tuesday. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it was.
remember.
That's right. Wow, good stuff. Yeah, yeah, I remember that now. Do you remember what you said to me? I parked my car and I came right through the door, and there you were standing at the reception desk. Do you remember what you said to me?
I remember that moment. I don't remember what I said to you. I don't. No, I
I'll
don't
tell
think
you.
I remember.
I'll tell you what you said to me. I came through the door, and you looked at me and you said, "Oh, you're a healer."
Oh, did I?
Yep. You said,
Yeah, I
"Oh,"
don't
you
remember. I
said,
don't
"You're a
remember.
healer," and I said, what? I said, how did you know? Because I never met you ever before. And I said, what? How did you know that? And then you're like, oh, I could see it. You did that. Oh, I could see it on you. And I was just like, So that was my first, uh,
During my
like,
sensitive years, yeah.
I was like, who is, yeah, who is this guy? How could he just know that? Because that time was my beginning. I had just decided to be public with the fact that I can do some stuff. I had just, so no one would have really known anything. So I was like, how the heck did he pick that up? It can't be from reputation, because, and none of these people at this place especially know about that, because there's a whole bunch of younger people and stuff. So I'm like, no, there's no way. So that was actually, you didn't even, you said literally, you said nothing. You just said, oh, you're a healer. And I was like,
Oh
what?
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, back
So,
in those days, I could look at people and see that. I can still do that, I guess. But
yeah,
yeah, but back in them
you were
days,
sharp, bro. You were sharp.
yeah. Well, but you
Yeah.
too, though, because you healed me once. I
Yeah.
was like, because when I met
Remember
you,
that?
I
Yeah.
was I was having a shoulder issue for years.
Shoulder. Yeah.
I pulled my shoulder working out at one point, and it never healed. And one time we were at a party, and
Yeah.
you were just doing some random Reiki sessions for people. So I stepped up and said, "Hey, I want to try it out." And you did
Yeah.
your thing and whatever. And that was what 12, 13 years ago,
Years
and I
ago.
hadn't
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
that situation in my shoulder
Yeah.
since. So I've never
Yeah.
forgotten that. So I
Yeah. There it is. Well, you
told you thank
you
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 already,
saw
but I'm saying thank you again.
it. You're welcome. Yeah, I remember that. Definitely. So okay, now you mentioned comedy. You mentioned comedy, and I have a question here. So you've walked the path of both comedy and contemplation. I want to know, what did laughter teach you about pain? And what did silence teach you about truth? So first, what did laughter teach you about pain?
That's a hard question to answer. What did laughter teach me about pain? Well, from a surface level, from a comedy level, the attachment to laughter,
Mm,
because the goal of a stand-up comedian is to get laughter. And if you don't get it,
yeah,
it's quite painful. So you try to do everything in your power to try to learn the techniques of what it takes to be a better stand-up comedian, to try to get that laughter every 10 to 12 seconds, right? But
yeah,
you
wow.
realize, you learn that the silence is just as important. So when you're doing
Mm,
the setup of a joke, you're supposed to have silence. And then when you hit the punchline, you're supposed to get laughter. So without laughter, you don't have silence. Without silence, you don't have laughter. Now, in regards to the spiritual journey, one of the things that happens when a person's having a spiritual awakening, and it's different for everyone. Some people may experience what they called the cosmic joke. This is where you
yes.
may
Oh
see
my
someone
gosh.
sitting there
Oh,
laughing hysterically,
facts.
crying tears of
Yes.
joy and laughing hysterically when one realizes that everything is just a one big joke. And
Yeah.
For me, walking the journey of being a stand-up comic I did stand-up comedy for what, 12 years. For 12 years, when I had my first experience of the big cosmic joke, um, that did it for me. I always associated that with my journey with stand-up comedy, that I finally got to the place where I needed to get to experience the big cosmic joke, that everything is, when I say one big joke, I'm not saying that it's not
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
but we're making the whole thing up. Right? We're making the whole thing up, and in
Yeah.
that moment, you
Yeah.
realize the full realization that you're making the whole thing up, that you are God making the whole thing up, fooling yourself, believing that you're separate, that you're this fragile human being, where the whole time you're the
Yeah.
universe itself,
Exactly.
creating this whole thing that you believe to be real. And in that moment, you realize that not that it's not real, but it's not what it appears to be, and that's the big joke.
Yeah. Do you have moments, do you have moments now in life where, because when I had that experience of, oh my gosh, this is, and I just choked, I literally kissed teeth. I was like, I can't believe this, literally, this is just all this. I don't want to say none of this is serious. It is,
It
but
is,
then it
but
really isn't. You know what I'm saying? Because,
mhm,
and again, we're speaking on levels, right? At the end of it all, like, in the space of all, in all truth, in all reality, everything is resolved. Everything is one, everything is balanced, all is well. Seriously, really, all really is well. But in this space of experience and time and lesson and feeling and all of this, duality and all of this that we experience, yes, in your individual self, you're going to have situations and circumstances that give you pleasant feelings, not pleasant feelings, pleasant experiences, not, and you're experiencing them. But outside of this, in actuality, all of this is all of this is done, right? Everything has been reconciled. And when you spend time, like personally for me, when I meditate, that's where I am, you know most of the times. When I meditate with the desire to spend time in reality. And it's not that this isn't real. Just like if I have a dream, my dream was real, it was a real dream. You know what I'm saying?
there's a
So
real experience that you're having.
it was a real, yes, of course, because if I'm having a dream that is very intense, I could wake up with sweats, I could wake up with all the, my body fully went through whatever it is I was, what was happening on the other side or in that dream. So likewise, I feel like what we are creating here is real. But the place that uh the majority of myself exists, if I could say it that way without being weird, or being confusing, the place where the majority of myself exists, I would say, is in a place of, it is it is finished, and it is good. That is where that's home. If I could say home, it is finished and it is good. But everything within me desires to be here. and experiencing this, that. So whenever I wanna remember, anytime I really actually want to make sure, I'm awake, I I go there. The same way when we get tired here, we take a nap, we go to sleep because we need to rest. I feel like for me, whenever I'm tired here, I just meditate. I just kind of go to that place, and that's my awake place. Instead of going to sleep, I wake myself up from the dream, which is what this is. Um, so does that make did I confuse?
It's not confusing to me. Everything is as it should,
Right, right,
right? There's
right,
no way,
right.
there's no way anyone can get this wrong, right? The way whatever anyone's doing in their life,
That
whatever
is
that
it.
thing is, this is how God, I don't want to say prepared it. Only reason I'm trying not to say prepared it is because
Mhm.
the experience that I had, it was past, present, and future. There was nothing for it to
Yeah,
do. Yet
no.
within our
Hmm.
reality, there is past, present, and future. There's momentary,
Yeah,
everything is momentarily. But in that experience, past, present, and future was the same thing. But
yeah.
but it was presence. There's nothing for God to do. And whatever I'm
Hmm.
doing right now, whether I'm desiring or not desiring something, that is God's will. But it takes
Yeah,
time to have will. And God's beyond time, but it also includes time.
that's right.
So it gets confusing.
Hmm.
So it's God's will for whatever is happening to happen because all God is
Yeah,
doing within time, which it's creating too, it's just trying to wake up to itself. It's just trying to get to realize who it is, who who it is. Is that right? It's
hmm,
simply just trying to wake up because it's the only thing to exist. There's nothing else for God to do. So God is just trying to wake up to
no.
itself because what else is there to do?
Yeah.
So it does this over and over and over again for eternity, just because I like to say it's because it's
But it's a great
amusing, but on another level,
experience.
it's not even,
It's
yeah,
a
it's not
great,
even that. It's just it's a great experience from God's
it
standpoint
just is.
because
Yeah,
it knows it
yeah,
can't die. It can't die.
yeah.
It can't it can't even live. It can't do any of those things. All the things that we're experiencing,
Because
that's
it's
what
like,
it's
exactly.
that's its own
Yes,
dream. And that's just what it's doing. So
yes,
there's no way we can get this
yeah,
wrong. Now we have the experience
yeah,
of getting things wrong or right, and have the experience of making
yeah,
choices and all that type of stuff, right? But from God's standpoint, that's just the ground of all being waking up to itself, and that takes
yeah,
all the actions and the situations and the actions, um, behaviors and everything that we're doing within it for it to do what it's
yeah,
doing. If you look at it from a
yes.
totality standpoint, as opposed to individuals doing things within the individual self, but when one wakes
Yeah,
up, as you know, there is no Yandea, there is no Morgan, there is no phone, there is no laptop, there is no yet
yeah.
there is because it just because it
There is.
transcended doesn't mean it still includes it. But
Exactly.
talking about that the whole totality, when one experiences the totality of all things, realizing who
Yes.
you actually are, which goes back to what you said earlier, I am I am that I am,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Because that's all there
definitely.
is. That's all there ever will be.
Yeah,
God is experiencing separation. God is experiencing the opposite of itself. God is experiencing going through having flaws because everything is perfect, but everything is perfectly flawed, right? So,
yeah,
right, that's the
yeah,
experience God is
yeah,
creating because if it didn't do that, then there would be no reason to experience it in the first place. So, if it's going to
yeah.
experience something, it's got to experience the opposite of itself, which is also creating, because the opposite of itself is in the imagination of God, in the mind of God, that's creating the opposite, which we experience the opposite of ourselves, which we get to experience separateness, so that one day within the story that we're creating, we can experience oneness. If you want to use oneness as a term, but the absolute singularity, the absolute monism, the experience of the absolute. One has to be the opposite of that before they can experience the absolute, and whatever that takes for each
Yeah,
individual. And everyone's different because everyone's on different planes and has different
yeah,
karma,
yeah, yeah,
has different background, different
yeah,
genetics, different everything. But
yeah, yeah.
as one goes through the reincarnations, everyone will get to that place. Whether it happened in this
Mm-hmm.
lifetime or 1,000 ones from now, everyone will get there because
That's
that's
right.
God's plan. It just wants to experience itself
Yeah,
as itself, for itself, by itself. To just
yeah,
what greater gift can a human being get from an
yeah,
individual standpoint, right?
yeah,
Is to have that experience of
yeah.
this singularity.
100%, man. 100%.
Yeah. So
I
if one
know,
person
I
goes
know.
back to sleep and they wake up, that's what that person's supposed to do because the person's going to wake up eventually anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing, the thing about it is that sometimes I wake up and I fall back asleep, and then I wake up and I'm upset, right? I'm like, man, I didn't want to fall asleep. And my husband goes, well, you fell back asleep because you needed to. You needed it. If you weren't tired, you wouldn't have fallen back asleep, Yandea. So stop being so hard on yourself. You needed the extra
Mhm.
sleep, so you fell back asleep.
Need the
And
extra sleep.
yeah, that's it. And sometimes I think that's what happens, right? Like we almost want to you hear about awakening, and so some people try to force awakening. And in that very trying to force awakening, um, there is a falling asleep in the very trying to force it. And what I mean by that is because um, if you try to, it's like trying to force a divine experience, right? Well, you can't like you can't manufacture that. You have an experience, and in that experience something will happen and a realization that will end up being divine, but it will usually not be the thing that you try to initiate. It's something else on its own that will end up happening, possibly as a result of that, but not that specific thing that you try to do. And so I find that I find that surrender for me is the best thing. Like knowing that God is love, knowing that all is well. When I'm in situations, very human situations, you there is no forcing yourself to be at a, oh, I wish I had more faith. And just I'm just gonna force myself. Because what you're gonna force yourself to have more faith, but your energy is never going to match up with what you're saying, because you haven't got there as a being. You know what I mean? You haven't gone through the actual process to be a person full of that level of faith. You know what I'm saying? If we're seeing like there's different levels of faith, so you may be speaking like as if you're on level 10 with it, but your actual faith is really at level 1. So you're going to have to continue to, doesn't matter if you keep talking as if you have faith, you're going to have to keep going through life and going through things until you actually get to being a person whose vibration or frequency matches with what they're saying. And I feel like that's what it is. Like you have to match with what with what you're speaking, you know, become a really a person who embodies the words. So a lot of people say all the right things, but then they don't have the power. You get what I'm saying? I'm using the word power, but they don't have the power within themselves to actually be at ease in the real situations, because they just haven't gotten there yet, right? And I'm speaking from my own experience of even after going through this closer to life experience, coming back with so much knowledge, so much understanding and everything, but I still had to go through a process of integrating all of this stuff, that I've come to remember it, because it's not even come to know. It's just I just remember, and so how do you take what you remember and integrate it with what like life has kind of taught you? But that's all skewed, you know what I mean? Like the things that life has, so you have to, it's a whole process, and if you rush that process, then you can't rush it. It's just the thing there. You can't, you're just more so still going through the path that you have to go through, because you can't rush it. If and I don't want to say the word destined, but if it's gonna take this much to get you here, you trying to rush it is just you being on the path for it taking that much to get you here. You get what I'm saying? Like you're just still going along the path. You could never rush awakening. You cannot rush ascension. You cannot rush any of these things, because it has to be real. It has to be, you have to literally actually fully become that thing, that idea, that level of consciousness is not something you can have. It's something that you are. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I
I would
just kept
ask, I would ask, I would ask anyone, can you rush tomorrow?
oh, that is so good. Even if you
Right?
decide to go to sleep and it comes quickly in your idea, it still didn't.
Still,
You just chose to tap out and not be
yeah,
aware. But
it's
it's
not
still
12
gonna
a.m.
take
yet.
its time. Exactly. That is,
And even when tomorrow comes, well, you can also look at it from the standpoint tomorrow never comes. It's always today.
Always today.
So
My
if
goodness.
you if your mind's fixed that tomorrow will come, well, you're mistaken because tomorrow never comes. It's always
No,
today.
it's
So
always today.
one has to realize, and they may have to go through all that to realize that. They may have to make all those
That's
mistakes,
right.
whatever, to realize that thing. But you come
Yeah,
to realize that I can't. There's nothing on my part for me to do.
yeah.
I'm just creating a story, whether I'm trying to rush it or not. But when grace touches you, it touches you. It has to
Oh,
happen tomorrow.
I love that. I want you to, grace is such, when you said grace, I felt ooh, like it was like a sweet, it wasn't cool, it was just cooling, like a nice, I don't know, like on a hot day, if you know the rain starts falling, it's like cool drizzles, you know, like there's a nice, yeah, I felt that when you said the word, wow, that's amazing. You said the word grace and it just swept over my soul, bro. It just, wow. Tell me, tell me when you say grace, because you know something about grace. I couldn't feel that unless you knew about grace. Tell me when you said the word grace, so when you say the word grace, what is your soul saying when you say grace? What does it mean, grace?
What does it mean? When I think of it, it's something that is. I could say that it's the compassionate version of divinity. Right.
Yeah.
That's one way how I could look at it. It's a compassionate version of divinity. So when it shows compassion upon you, that same divinity, that's the same as any aspect of divinity. Um, it just knows this is the thing. I'm granting this person this thing in this moment, and you're granted with it.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
and it comes in many different ways. You hear how people use the word grace, even if it's either the word grace or some other word, where someone is granting you something or someone is having compassion on you. It's like, you know what? Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna spare you this once, and you
Yeah.
chop the neck off the other person beside them. Just like I'm gonna spare you this.
Yeah.
Grace could
Yeah.
also be used on the opposite end, where it's like, oh, you know what? I see that you've been working hard to try to get this thing.
Oh,
I'm gonna
yeah.
anoint you with this thing right here in this moment. But that anointment was
Oh,
for you the whole time. It's just you
yeah.
felt that you had to go through, jump
Oh
through
my.
hoops and do all this to
Mm-hmm.
get it. But I was here
Mm-hmm.
to grant you this thing the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what that aspect of divinity does.
Yes.
When grace is bestowed upon you.
Yeah. I think I feel like awakening is grace. I do. Like that whole process of awakening, whether it's something like, for example, have, you and I have been working. You could just put it that way. We have consciously sought in different ways. We have consciously sought to be more conscious. We've been aware. It doesn't matter how it started, right? But we've been aware that there's more to life than what I'm what I was told. And so I'm gonna consciously go on this journey to try to, whether it's understand myself or understand what else exists or so we've both we have that in common. So someone could say, oh, you guys were working for your awakening, you were working for your this or that. But when I experience the closer to life experience, to me, I could see grace throughout my whole life. But to me, that was grace. Like that was grace, because obviously we could say I didn't have to come back, right? Like, I mean, I asked to be returned to my body. When I stood there in the presence of truth, I knew, I knew that I knew that I was known fully. I knew that I was known fully. I knew that my existence as an individual was bigger than my individual mess. You get what I'm saying? I knew all of that, but I was aware that I was making a request still for my individual desire. I was aware of all of that all at once. I knew all of that. And I knew that I would make the request, and the final thought, the final decision would only give me, like, grant me access back into this realm. if what I was saying was true. I knew all of that. I knew that if it was like, no, keep going, you know what I mean? Return, come back home. I knew that if that was it, is because from asking, I was asking, it means must have been asking from maybe more ego. You get what I'm saying? If I was led on, it's like, okay, you're still in that individualness and not understanding that there is a bigger, way bigger picture. And I stood there seeing the bigger picture, understanding my individualness, understanding how going back would be beneficial, understanding it would not just be beneficial to my family, but it would be beneficial to everybody. But at the same time, it would be my desire. You get what I'm saying? So there was nothing wrong. There was nothing not holy about having an individual desire as a woman, as a soul, to want to return to earth to love my husband and children. And while I know that, there's other people that will be helped by this return. And if I don't go back, I'm still going to enjoy this place here also, where I am. All of that existed all there at once. Some people think like, if you see this and you see this, why would you come back to earth? That's because you don't really understand them. Like, you get what I'm saying? If you're actually in that place where you see the oneness of, like you say, it's going further is not good or bad. Coming back is not good or bad. It's all just choice. And if the choice is going to be beneficial for all, it will be allowed. If it's not, then it won't be. That's how clear it was to me. And I was just totally surrendered to whatever decision, if it was accepted or not. That was it. After I made the request, I had no attachment to the request. I had zero attachment to it. And I think that is the first time in my life, to my real conscious knowledge, that I experienced true prayer. Like
true
prayer.
True prayer.
Prayer. Yeah. It's and do you know what, Nathan? I don't think I ever articulated it like in this moment, how I'm talking with
Oh,
you.
no?
No, I don't think I ever, I mean, I've said it many times, but I don't think I ever like zoned in on it like I just did. Okay, maybe because I'm like really in it, you know what I'm saying? Like brought myself right back there in a sense. But yeah, that's what it is. It's like when you ask for something, you know that it can benefit you. It's for your joy, but it's good for all. And there is no, it won't happen unless if there is a little bit of a like a tainting in your asking. You get what I'm saying? In your put, like, you know what I'm saying? If you're asking more from an ego side, then it may not be. But I'm just speaking for myself, and maybe somebody else listening is thinking, when I meditate or I pray, like I wonder why this and that don't happen, you know, the delay in it. Because I have seen, even like when you said about the healing for your shoulders, so funny you brought it up, but that's like what I just said there is exactly what I do when I do healing. It's like all hitting me now. It's exactly what I do, because I know that this love, this grace, this power that flows through me is I tell people all the time, listen, you come to me, I just want to be able to be a vessel, so that if this thing that you're asking for is lined up for you to happen, it happens. But I don't have a desire to heal you. I just have a desire that whatever is supposed to happen will happen. So that's it. That's all I do. And people always like, but you don't want to hear me. I'm like, no, I don't want to hear you. I want whatever is supposed to happen. So if I don't have any, I'm not going to be there like pressing harder or stay longer. No, it's not today. You know, and luckily for me, I think that because that's my stance on it, I think that's why just great things are always happening, because that is standing in the place of surrender, of grace. being able to allow that to flow to other people, and also having them be also surrender themselves, you know what I mean? And open to receive what is theirs to receive. Because I think most people actually block themselves from their own healing. It's nothing else but themselves, right? Blocking themselves from their own everything.
Another experience God is just trying to have.
Just yes, yes. What does it look like? What does a world, okay, let's not go as big as a world. What does a country look like where the majority of people, like let's say 95% of people, are all awakened and all have this sort of understanding that all is well, I am most high, and I am also, right, my individual self, all of what we just kind of discussed. What does it look like if there is a place where, like I said, 95% of the people are in that, are at that level of consciousness? What's that look like? How different is it from what we have right now?
I don't know if I really look at it that way. I feel that whatever is happening now is what's supposed to happen. On another level, everyone is awake, right? Everyone is enlightened. Everyone's awake. All of that is happening, but
Yes.
they're choosing not to be, to have the experience that they're currently having, whatever that is, from God's standpoint. So someone's asked me that before, not from the standpoint of a country, but the standpoint of the whole entire world. What would it look like if the whole world awakened? But if the whole world awakened, there probably wouldn't be anything because you're awake.
Well, that's why
So
I'm asking. That's why
right?
I'm asking you.
Yeah, there wouldn't be much
Yeah,
happening. It would just be God. It'd just be God realm. So
yeah.
God is choosing to be awakened in some and not be awakened in others. All of that is happening, but on a deeper level, everyone is always awake, pretending that they're dreaming. So it doesn't matter whether it's the country or if it's a society, if it's the world itself. But we're all pretending to be dreaming. We're all pretending to for you to have this YouTube channel, and I'm pretending to be this and that, whatever. I'm not really a spiritual teacher. I'm only pretending to be one. All of this is God's fraudulent self, uh, pretending to be all these things. Now, if you fall for the fact, if you fall for the belief that you are these things, then you feel separate, you feel superior, or you feel inferior, or whatever the case is. Because again, that's the experience God wants to have. But at the end of the day, God is wearing many different masks, and that includes wearing the mask of being awake or wearing the mask of not being awake. Because even being awake is part of the dream too. Um, that's also part of the dream. So one has to wake up from that too and say, "Oh gosh, all the
That's
times when I said that I was awakened,
that's
man, that
exactly it.
was
That's
yeah,
exactly,
that's part of it
yeah,
too. Yeah, it's
yeah.
just fooling
All the
ourselves with this thing, right?
yeah, because
All part of the mix.
every time you go through an awakening, that's exactly what it is. It's like you, it's like what? Okay, wow. So for me personally, after experiencing that so many times, after experiencing that so many times, I came to the conclusion that it really doesn't matter because, you know, I am already awake, fully awake, where this is the whole understanding of higher self, right? If you want to use that word, it helps you understand more. Higher self or highest self or most high, however you want to put it. If you know that, okay, I'll tell you how I had that experience. Quick story, it's very quick. I was doing something one day in my bedroom, I was cleaning up, and spirit said, come. So this is how it happens with me, right? I'll just be doing my thing and I'll just come. So I know what it is now, right? At first I didn't know, I had to learn, you know what I mean? But now I feel that I just put whatever I'm doing down, I sit down or I lay down and I just close my eyes. I say, okay, here I am. Just like that, here I am. And then I'll just be gone. Wherever it is, I'm gone, taken, wherever. So this has been happening for the past, how old is April? So over 23 years, right? This has been happening. And
Hmm.
so one day, this was like maybe 2018, no, 2017. So I got that saying, okay, come. And I went, I laid down. And as soon as I laid down, my experience was, it was a whole big long experience, but I'll just tell you this part. As soon as I laid down, immediately I was just being drawn out of my body, right? Just drawn out. My consciousness is aware of where I'm going and I was fully aware of everything. Being drawn out of my body, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm seeing, what's happening. I don't have a body. I'm just awareness. And, but I am breath. And I'm like, oh, I'm being inhaled. Literally, I was like, oh, I'm being inhaled. Literally, it felt like I was being the same way when you take a deep breath. So I was like, oh, I'm being inhaled. After I got to a certain point, and I knew I was being inhaled by God. It sounds weird, but I was being inhaled by God. After I got to a certain place, I transformed from breath. And all of a sudden, I became thought. So I went from being outside of God as breath, and all of a sudden, I'm inside, right? Inside of God as thought. And it's still me, but I literally transformed from breath to thought and whatever. So now I'm now inside the mind of God, who is me, right? And I'm in this space and there's a whole conversation and everything is going on. And then I'm exhaled. And when I get exhaled, I go right back. Now with all the knowledge and everything, I go right back into the earth. And Spirit explains to me that this is all it is. This is what it is. Some people forget this thought that was here. By the time they get breathed into incarnation, they forget the thought. And so they're just breath being in the world, but they've forgotten the thought part of it. So there's a lot of, we're just being life, right? We're just being breath, but why we came, right? Like why we came, we forgot. And when I had my post-life experience, that's literally what I experienced. So imagine in 2018, Spirit gave me that experience. And it wasn't until 2024, January, that I actually died and had the experience of, oh yeah, right, that's why I came and I came back again. So I look at this whole thing that we talk about, right? Like meditation and all of that, and you're doing the what's it called?
Well, I'm doing brainwave entrainment. I'm doing the neurofeedback training. Yeah.
Yes. And so I want to ask you, like, how does, like, if somebody's watching, right? Because you have um Yinnergy technology. Is that what it's called?
Yinnergy Technologies is, yeah,
Yes.
it's the
Yes.
it's the trademark name. Yeah.
So I want you to just to tell us a bit about Yinnergy meditation technologies, and how did this method come through, and how can it help listeners? So people who are listening right now, maybe some people will resonate and be like, oh, you know what? I wanna try this. I wanna, get into meditation. I wanna whatever. Like, how can it help listeners to quiet the noise of the world, and maybe, like I gave that analogy just now, or that experience I had, help them to remember, like, help them to remember why they came. Because I feel sometimes like if we're able to quiet the noise of the world, we'll remember, sometimes like you're going into a place, you have something to do, and then as soon as people start talking to you, you forget why you even went. What did I go here for? What did I come to the store for again? You get a phone call and you forget. I think sometimes that's what's happening, right? We remember, but then all the noise of the world, all the expectations of people, all of the this, all of the that, it just drowns out our memory of like why we're here. Is your meditation technique and the technologies and all that, is that something that can help people with quieting their mind and helping them to know themselves again? Or how does it work?
Sure, if one's looking at it from that standpoint, um, everything is happening as it should. So if a person's supposed to have their mind quieted by meditation or through high-tech meditation, then that's what will happen. But it may be different for everyone. For one person, mind chatter may reduce. For another person, it may be something else that reduces. Yeah. So energy meditation is meditation. It's doing what meditation does, which meditation's been doing for the last over 5,000 years that we've uh, um, brought in that form of technology into mankind. But what the energy is low carrier frequency entrainment where it meditates you. So it's designed as binaural beats, but the binaural beats that I'm using a mathematical uh, uh, theorem called vortex-based mathematics, which is a mathematics that was created by a mystical mathematician by the name of Marco Rodin. And Marco Rodin, you can look him up online. He has like this 4 hour workshop where he's talking about the number nine, how number nine is the mathematical equivalent of God, because nine is a perfect number. If you multiply any number um, by the number nine, you'll always get nine. So it doesn't matter how big the number is. If you take any number and you multiply it by nine, the answer you get, you take those numbers, you add them up together, and you keep adding and crunch them down to a single digit number, it will always be nine. So that's the power that nine has mathematically. And so if you know how to use the numbers nine, three, and six, you can actually mathematically create the fingerprint of God, at least mathematically anyway. So the numbers three, six, and nine, three and six gives you nine. So the numbers, the algorithm of the actual algorithm that's being used, I never tell people how I use it, but
Mhm.
the numbers that's being used is the numbers 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 7 plus 5 gives you 27. 2 plus 7 gives you 9.
Yeah.
So it's learning how to use the number nines, sixes, and threes to your advantage so that when one's meditating, you're using the technology where, of course, it's sound that's buried under music or nature sounds. It's embedded underneath the music. You put it on, you play it, and when your brain hears it, the two hemispheres of your brain starts to um, synchronize with
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
So when people become awakened, I believe that happens when the two sides of the brain synchronizes, and it's a very
Absolutely.
hard process for that to happen. But when it
Absolutely.
does happen, that's what happens. That's when
Wow.
a person may have the experience of non-duality, where you can't make a distinction between left and right, up and down, front and back, and so on, when the two sides of the brain synchronizes with each other. So the goal is to synchronize the brain, but synchronizing the brain comes with a whole bunch of other benefits, like what you just said earlier, like stilling the mind,
Yeah.
bringing you into different meditative states, bringing you into samadhi, bringing you into tranquility, peace of mind, helps purge, well, the lower carrier frequencies, which is also part of this program, helps purge the nervous system, the brain and the nervous system of all what they call karmic goop. Karmic goop is for those who know about nadis, 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 which are the subtle channels within the body and outside of the body. So the in the in the Hindu practices or the yogic practices, they believe that there's 72,000 of these nadis, these nadi channels that are flowing in and out of the body, but they're clogged with karmic goop. So when it comes to when you learn how to clear out the that karmic goop that's stuck within the channels, the life force energy travels through them. So that takes time and energy to do um, because it takes time to push that karmic goop out of the system because the nadis are so thin. They're so refined. They're finer than the strand of a
Mhm.
string of hair.
Yeah.
That's all. So it takes time to push that karmic goop out of the system so that life force energy can travel from point A to point B. And so for one to have a Kundalini awakening, all these channels has to be clear, and the chakras have to be aligned and in place so that when the energy travels from the tailbone of your spine up to the crown of your head, it moves smoothly without pain, with less pain, less discomfort. But of course, most people when they do try to have a Kundalini awakening, do go through some form of discomfort because everyone has clogged nadis. So,
Yeah.
but it's different for everyone because everybody has different practices, different diets, um, different holistic practices where they may have less clogged nadis than another person. But if you can clog all the nadis, the energy from the tailbone of the spine will travel up the spine, travel through all the nerve endings, travel through all the meridians, travel through all the nadis that will allow this energy to reach the crown, the crown chakra, where one has the illumination of 1,000 petals. Is more than 1,000, but 1,000 petals that will blossom, where one will experience grace, where one will experience the totality of all that is by releasing the clogging of all these nadis, so that one can experience their true self through um, having the petals blossom to how they're supposed to. So it's a long process. And of course, a Kundalini is different than quote unquote spiritual awakening. One can say it's one and the same, but they can't be two separate things. Where one can have a Kundalini awakening, but not necessarily had a spiritual awakening, and one can have a spiritual awakening and not necessarily have a Kundalini awakening. And you have the odd people who have both. Um, so a Kundalini awakening is different from the sense that the gross body, the physical body, is waking up to itself, whereas a spiritual awakening, the most subtlest, the subtle aspect of your being awakens to itself. So one can have a Kundalini awakening where the whole physical body wakes up, or one can have a spiritual awakening where the subtle bodies wake up, or one can have both.
Um, Amazing everything that you just shared. And you know, I always make little jokes. Still, my gift is questions. Ever since I was little, I always had a million questions, right? And so I know when certain questions come to me to ask someone, there's always more to it. Now, people who've been following me on here, I've in at least 2 or 3 videos that I've posted on here, I've talked about um, healing the brain, the importance of healing the brain. And the reason why that I never had any thought about the brain like I do now. But some time ago, I'm saying this, Morgan, because I want you to piece some things together for me because you know a lot more about the brain than I do. And so let's say like I don't remember when a few years ago, what are we in? So let's say maybe 2021 or 22, something like that. I became a specialist in neurographica, right? Neurographica deals with it's using it's art, right? But it's all using to create new neural pathways, right? Um, and so the type of art that you're doing, you're not just drawing something, you're actually connecting your dominant hand to your brain, right? Making a connection, and then you're drawing neurographic lines that are going to be specifically linked to the certain problem you're trying to resolve. And then there's a whole process of how you go on and forth. Anyway, so I was led to that via a dream that I had. Literally had the dream, saw myself in my tent, sitting down. Someone had a clipboard. I gave them a black marker, and they were following my instructions. So I was like, what? It looked like scribbles on a paper. Woke up, was told to go onto YouTube, went onto YouTube, bam, saw a woman, and she was talking about neurographic, and I saw the lines, and I was like, what the hell? Exactly what I just dreamt. Next thing you know, I'm taking the course, I'm doing this, so now I'm a specialist, right? Okay. So I've been doing that since that time. I mean, like in no time, I went through the whole thing. And I realized when I would do drawings with people, I would look at the lines and I was seeing a whole bunch of things. That's not part of the course at all. But my other spiritual giftings were picking up to be able to like interpret signs and this and that, all these different stuff. So another gifting within myself awoken, just by proceeding, right? And following that. Now, fast forward, that's like all I knew about the brain, like, okay, neuroplasticity and da 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 da, whatever. When I had my closer to life experience, and one of the things that happened is when I came back, remember I told you on the last episode how I taught my husband to do the hypnosis thing, right? So when he put me under, one of the things I experienced, like my higher self came into play. And I started getting these shocks. Like my legs would just like move. I would feel it like shocks of electricity just through my body. And I'm laying there and I'm like, I'm just laying on the bed getting shocked. And I'm like, what is this? Like, but it felt like it was like short circuiting, right? And I'm like, what is going on? And then all of a sudden, and I remember that day I had a migraine. My head was like pounding. And I had this migraine. That's why I was like, babes, I just feel like I need to go in to find out what is this headache about. And when I went under hypnosis, all of this stuff was happening to me. And I saw a light, like bright light inside of my head, right? Bright, white, white light, but it had like a
White light.
bluish, but it had like a bluish glow, almost like it was It was so white. It had, it was like, it was so white. It looked like a little blue also with it, right? So I'm looking, my eyes are closed, but this light is just piercing my head. And all of a sudden, I'm fully aware of, it's like I'm like a brain surgeon. Like I'm fully aware of inside my head, like cellular level, right? And and then all of a sudden, I feel the same light. It came through like it was going back and forth through like my brain. Actually, my brain was going back and forth, and it was like it was sewing my brain together. But the light was this thing. It was like it was passing through, but I could see these little, man, they were so thin. They were like almost like spirit threads. Like they were so thin, just like some of them were broken. And then they started joining back together. And I said, what is that? Like, because I could see in a, it's beyond microscopic. Like I don't even know what level of vision to call this. Because I know that if a doctor had to open my brain, they could not see these things that I was seeing. It was on such a deep level. And so they began to connect. And as they connected, I could feel my brain like come together. It sounds so weird, but I could feel like my brain was two separate pieces and it just came back. Like it came as one brain. And then all of a sudden that light just went like through my whole body and everything, right? And then my headache was gone. My just since that day, I've never got migraines like that. Like that was the end of the migraine story for me. And what my higher self told me is that when I said, what was wrong? What was that? And my higher self said, brain damage. And I thought brain damage, like I'm thinking brain damage is like, you know, someone that has brain damage. And then spirit opened up this whole thing to me, showing me how everyone has brain damage. Like like everybody, and then these subtle breakings happen through like childhood traumas. They're not the kind of brain damage like, oh, car accident, you know what I mean? You got a concussion, you got a this. No, it was like when things happen to children that shouldn't happen, and then their brain cannot, like, you know, your little innocent spirit knows that this is not right. And so a part of you like breaks in order to stay. You get what I'm saying? It's like in order to continue living in the situation or to, you know, to survive, the pressure of the whole thing, that's just one way, there's many ways. But the pressure of it breaks, you know. So these little cords just, they can't take the pressure and they come apart. And so spirit was showing me how I'm showing you this because you are to heal brains. And I was like, how am I supposed to do? Because it's this light, like, you know, I'm like, how am I supposed to do this? You know? And so from that time, a big part of my practice, I just, when people would come to me for healing, I'd always kind of, by the way, do you want me to just do a little thing for your brain? You know, I kind of just been doing that since that time. I just add in a little, let's just do a little brain healing, you know, because I know in order for certain things to stay and to take hold in the body, and also spirit was like, people have a hard time integrating their higher self because you cannot come to a higher spiritual level if your body's effed up. You know, like if you are not, if you're disconnected in your body, it's very difficult for you to maintain, like basically, if you have to think of it in a certain way, like your higher self is like a level of energy that if you have broken pipes, you know what I mean? Like within yourself, it's just, it can't ground. You can't hold it. I'm out to put it. You can't hold it for too long. You can't hold that charge. You can't walk around holding that charge. It will probably, I don't want to say, it will probably kill most people, to be honest with you. Most people cannot physically hold that level of energy within themselves because it's just too dangerous for the physical body. And so that's what spirit was showing me. In order for you to fully integrate your higher self, your brain needs to be healed, and all of these pathways in your body has to be cleared. And so until this moment right now, hearing you talk about nadis And I also knew the 144,000 melodies. Like these things were in my head, but I never went. And that's how I am. Unless Spirit's like, go look this up. I have too many things to do. I'm not gonna go just for the fun of it, go look stuff up. But moments like this will happen where ask this question, ask the question, boom, you're giving me the answer. And I think that I hope that everybody listening to us right now can really take that seriously. You know what I mean? Really take like brain health, body health, health in general, but in all of this spiritual talk. And I love the fact that you talked about, the bodily awakening, so to speak, and the spiritual awakening, because we are, one thing I could tell you, I love being on earth now way more. First, it was like when I found my husband, it was like, wow, okay, I could do this, you know what I mean? But after the NDE, yes, it was a little bit difficult because I really was seeing like the contrast of purity, you know what I'm saying? And then it was a little bit hard, at first, but then I had to understand, and I felt the desire of love to be here, and I felt that, and I know that yes, everybody won't awaken at the same time, but for those who, I believe in choice and balance. And I think that we have to be able to be free, right? We have to be able to be free to find our doors, right? Because if this door says exit, well, where's the door that says enter? What about all the people who want to find the door that says enter? If all we're seeing is the doors that say exit, where's the door that says enter? And I think it's important that while we understand all of this, that we may understand about choice and everything, that for, we still provide for Most High within this realm, doors that say enter. You get what I'm saying? So that those who are ready and wanting to experience, right, going through those doors can see them, right? And so for all those people who are like, I want to experience integrating my higher self, I want to go down this path now, really and truly, then you have to desire healing of your body. I can say truly that I do not believe, it's from my own experience, okay? I believe the fullness of life really, as I'm experiencing it, is from spirit dancing with nature. You know what I mean? It's this beautiful marriage of the spirit with matter, right? They don't have, so many times in spiritual circles, everybody wants to out of body, out of body, out of body. Everybody wants to be out of the body. Everybody wants to travel the galaxy. That has its place. You can do that. But there is something so beautiful about being in your body and being able to experience the fullness of color, the fullness of sound, taste. Like there's just something so beautiful about experiencing life without the trauma, experiencing life through a healed vessel. That's what I feel like we've it's like all of this spiritual talking, and everybody wants to go to heaven, but heaven is on earth, like, you get what I'm saying? So that, for anybody watching who's hearing us talk, you can reach out to Morgan, or myself, whatever, follow your journey, you know what I mean? But the brain is so important to heal. Morgan, do you want to share anything else? Like, did anything you say resonate? Did it make sense?
It did. The brain and the nervous system has to be purified for this energy to travel through. But always keep in mind that's also part of the story. So,
Yeah.
does it have to happen that way? No, that's just how God designed it. Right? So you get to have the experience of purifying the body so that this energy can pass through. But of course, as you know, from outside of that, none of that even matters. But within the story, there has to be a reason why if I'm going downtown, I have to travel some kind of path to get downtown. I can't just and be downtown. There's a route that I got to take. But the thing is, there's more than one route. There are many different ways to get
There's more
downtown.
than one, exactly
Yeah,
true.
I just may
Yep.
have a preference. right? So everyone within the story, because keep in mind it's a story that we're making up. Within the story, you have the role of playing this character who gets to choose a path, whatever that path is. My path is through neurofeedback training and brainwave entrainment. Another person's path could be yoga, Kundalini
Yes,
yoga. Another person's path could be through Tai Chi,
yes,
whatever the
true.
case is. So there's different paths. But whatever that path is, if one studies each path, they realize that in each of these paths there's a clearing of the brain and the nervous system within that path, because it's the only way for the energy to pass through.
Yeah.
It's just like imagine being caught in the traffic jam, right?
Mhm,
Everybody knows what that's
mhm,
like, but you know what it's like when
mhm.
traffic is flowing. It's the same thing when it
Oh
comes
yeah.
to the nadis and everything that's happening in the body. It has to be flowing, and if there's any blockages within the body that stops this energy from flowing, it will cause some form of discomfort. For me, my
Yeah.
blockages was in the kidney, so I always end up getting kidney pains,
Yeah.
that type of thing. For other people, it's in the stomach. For some people, it's in the brain. For others, it's in the chest, in the
Yeah.
center of the chest. They have a blockage in the heart chakra. For some people, it's is in the sexual organs, in the sacral chakra, and on and on and on. And everyone has their challenges, and so it's about, okay, I have to do whatever it takes to clear that part of the body so that this energy can pass through. But that's within the story.
Yeah.
That's just the story that we're making up. Outside of the story, there's no need to do anything, of course.
It's
But
done.
within the story that we're creating,
Yeah.
we created a story that this is the way that it should be done if this is the practice that I'm doing or that practice that I'm doing. So it takes a level of clearing out those the chakras and clearing up the nadis. And there are many different ways of doing that, whether it's breath work, um, herbs, weightlifting. A lot of people
Yes.
haven't realized that weightlifting actually enhances meditation practice. This is scientifically
Yeah.
proven. So if people pick up a weight
Mhm.
training routine, that helps tremendously in regards to spiritual meditation practice. Meditation, shadow work is a great complement to meditation, because meditation is not really great with dealing with shadows. So by
Mhm.
adding shadow work to the practice will enhance meditation practice greatly. And the list goes on of all the different things. But you're right, though, when it comes to the brain and what you're seeing in the brain and the bright light that you're seeing within the brain inside with your eyes closed, many people have talked about that experience. I've done
Yeah.
that many times as well. But what was interesting about what you said is about when you saw the strings
Yeah.
doing its thing. Yeah. And is that you're probably actually seeing, um, they don't call it this, but I would say the head noddies. Um, you're probably seeing that
Yeah.
and watching them form and I can't remember if you were saying that they were connecting or regenerating themselves. But
Yeah. Yeah. They were just forming, they were just
forming, right?
coming
Just
right
coming
back
back
to
in.
exact, and yeah, right back to each other. And then once they connected, it's like they just tightened, whoop, and my brain just,
And
I
your brain just
literally
went,
felt the
yeah,
two, I wasn't even aware of, because we always talk about like the hemispheres and all this stuff. But listen, I felt it. I felt my brain just come as one. Like,
yeah,
it's like if you could look back, I feel like I had two sides and then they just
yeah.
came
And
back
then it
as
became one.
one.
Yeah.
It's
And
one.
that's important because the two hemispheres of the brain has it's supposed to have a relationship with each other, because usually the two halves of the brain are speaking two different languages. And now you have to get the two hemispheres of the brain to come together and integrate and speak the same language. And that takes a
Right.
lot of effort for that to happen, and it happens for people to people in different ways. And yours, it
Yes.
happened differently. But the two hemispheres of the brain have to connect. That they have to, because they one is feminine, one is masculine, and the two come together, and then it becomes a union. And that union has to happen within the brain. It has to happen within the two sides of the body. It has to happen between the two eyes. It happens with the two nostrils. Hence why in pranayama you have the alternate nostril
Right.
breathing, all that stuff to
Right.
try to integrate the two sides of the left and right. And because as above, so below, as within, so without. So it
That's right.
takes, it may take a number of different ways to get people to have a practice that integrates the two parts so that one can experience all four, as within, so without, as above, so below, as within, so without. It takes the integration. I'd call that the global synchronization of the body, mind, spirit, and soul, so that one can have the ultimate experience of the absolute oneness, which is omnipresent, where when one has that experience, they realize that they're at all locations simultaneously, but all locations is actually right here. It's just we're having
Right
the
here.
experience of experiencing different
Yeah.
locations, but it's all right here. And then again, what is right here? Because there actually is no such thing as right here. That's just the
Yeah.
experience of separateness that we're having to experience a here and a there, but there is no here and a there per se. Here and there,
That's
up
right.
and down, left, right, um, inside, outside is all the same exact thing. And one would have to
Yeah.
experience that to realize that we're speaking the truth on that.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the thing, right? Like you said, just you just speak it, and who knows. And there's some things you won't know now until then. Like I said, I thought I really understood some things in the Bible because I was always that person who people would be like, yeah, and what does that mean? Because I already, the way I even learned about the Bible was on a whole supernatural level anyways, to begin with, from I was like 12 years old. So
Mm.
I was always that person that people would go to for like, what does this really mean? And then after this post-life experience, I was like, what? This is on a whole, everything I said was true. But now with
But
this experience, it was like, oh my gosh, everything is just on a whole other things, like everything, just mind blowing, right? So yeah, and so I had to reconcile my love for some of the scriptures, because now I'm like, but that is so true. There's really no better way to say that thing, because I had a love-hate relationship. I went through a whole thing, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
like most people do when they come out. But then I was able to see that these words, the reason why they resonate so deeply with me is because I know them from past lives that existed before Yeshua even existed. You see what I'm saying? So I know through my own experience that these words are ancient truths that have been spoken long, long, long ago. And so when we hear them, it resonates with us because we know it. We know the truth when you hear it, right? And so that's a whole other thing. But I have one more question for you, but I'm just gonna go to the chat quickly. There's a lot happening here. We can't go to everybody's thing, but someone, Soul Reaction by Sharon TV says, I love this. Thank you for sharing. And Wayne says, yes, so true. Um, Hypnosis Sanctuary says, healing is accepting and letting go. If all is perfect, then there is nothing wrong. We are all acting, all is a dream. Being awake is remembering that you are the creator. Is the technology changing the frequency of the brainwave, putting it in the alpha state? So that's the question.
Say it again.
Is the technology changing the frequency of the brainwave, putting it in the alpha state?
It's taking one from the beta state to the alpha state to theta to delta and to epsilon. Yeah, so it's a part. Alpha is part of it. Our alpha is probably only like 10 minutes of it. It's an hour session that people are doing. So it takes you 10 minutes, 10 minutes from upper alpha to lower alpha, from upper theta to lower theta, from upper delta to lower delta into epsilon. Keeps you in silent for an extra half hour.
Okay. So then we have, okay, so balancing of the brain frequency, and then they are blocked by emotions. So, you can't go to heaven until you master the mind and body. One may have multiple blockages, balancing the masculine and feminine aspects of self, mind, body, spirit. And then Dwayne Hall
So
has
people
blessed
know,
me.
they know.
Yeah, yeah. And then Dwayne
Oh,
Hall
what did
has
Dwayne have to say?
Dwayne blessed me with $2. He's liking the discussion. Thank you, brother.
Nice.
Thank you very much. And so to everybody who has been, tuning in, everybody who has been to, someone has left a dream on here, but I don't like to just share dreams. I'm not one to just share dreams without looking at it, interpreting it, understanding fully, especially if this is public. But I'm not going to leave your dream out on this live. So, but thank you for sharing, and we can always get in touch if we want to separately. Okay, so I have one more question. Morgan, you've been so good, so patient.
Oh,
So
my
patient.
pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what message do you hope life now? Now, okay, I'm gonna ask you to, if this is possible, I'm gonna ask you to answer this question as hmm, as as just Morgan, the individual man who has experienced these last 15, 15 years, right?
53?
53 years, 53 years, um, focusing just answering from what you have gathered through your personality, through your individual self, right? Um, what message do you hope your light, your path, and your voice leaves behind in this world?
Sorry, say it again.
What
I missed the
message,
last.
yep, what message do you hope your life, your path, and your voice leaves behind in this world?
Me as an individual, huh?
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I actually don't have an answer for that, to be honest with you. If I have to be truly honest, I don't have an answer for that, except for the individual Morgan wants everyone to awaken. I understand that that will not be the case in everyone's lifetime.
Yeah,
It'd be a small percentage of people.
yeah,
They say 0.001% of the population awakens, at least
yeah,
at the deepest level that I'm talking about. So if that is true, that means throughout all of human history, it's been a small percentage of people who have, even though it's a lot of people, but it's a small percentage in comparison to the amount of people that's walked this earth.
yeah,
But my goal is to help awaken as much people as possible. I want that to be known. I want
yeah,
that to be left behind. I want that to be a part of my legacy.
yeah,
But how I'm trying to do that is happening through different ways, whether it's through my blogs. I also have a blog that people can look up. I can't remember what the blog posted. Morgan O. Smith blog. I don't remember what it is, but
I'm
you can
gonna put all
if
your
you
stuff.
Google
I'm
me,
gonna put
it's
all
there.
your
Yeah,
stuff there. Yeah, yeah,
if you go through my link tree, it's all there. The
yeah,
energy is all there. Everything is there. But I do that through blog writing. I do that through writing books. I'm working on my second book now, which is called Leaving Miss Madigan. Hopefully, will come out soon. I do that through Yinnergy. I do that through. There's a bunch of stuff. I have movie scripts that I have to sell.
yeah,
And there's a glimpse of that within the 30 movie scripts. Well, they're not full scripts; they're synopsis,
yeah,
um, where I'm subtly speaking about awakening through almost all 30 of these different concepts. Um, and the list goes on. Everything that I do in the nonprofit sector, I'm doing that. If I'm working in the school system, that's what I'm trying to do. So I want to leave that behind. I want people. Also, I hope one day I'm able to build a school in Africa or anywhere around the world, but hopefully first in somewhere in Africa where I can open up a
yeah.
school that it has these principles
That's right.
within it. So there's a lot of things that I have in mind that I would like to do. And if
Mm-hmm.
I do have the chance to do that in this lifetime, that's what I want to leave behind is trying to leave the trying to leave the map of one of the many maps of how to awaken.
Yeah, I love it. That's it. We have the contribution, right? And we come to live, but hopefully in our living, if we choose, because that's the beauty of it, right? The beauty is you are most high expressing through the personality, through the individual of one. And we all get to witness what what will and what is most high doing for one, and it's beautiful when the things that you see most high doing for Morgan are things that are helpful and beneficial, especially in a world that is offering so much so many other options. Some are painful, some feel harmful, so it's nice to have the balance. That's why I believe in choice and balance, right? I i choose at this point in my life, and I think through all my life, I always want to be a person to offer help and healing and awakening and all these things, ascension assistance, is how I would put it. But I recognize that even though that is my desire, just by living, sometimes I may hurt, you know, sometimes I may, so the balance still ends up coming around, either way. And it's all part of the whole process.
It's all
I
part of
might
the
have
whole
lied.
process.
I might have lied when I said one last question because I have one
Go
more.
ahead.
This is really the last one. I didn't mean to.
You can ask me. You can
This is
ask me
really the
10
last.
more if you wanted to. I'm good.
Ah, I love it. Okay, here's another one. This is the last one thing. Okay, if love could speak through you directly right now to
Speak to me
someone
or speak through me?
through you,
Through me?
right? Through you right now to someone who is listening, someone on the edge of giving up, what would it say?
What would it say?
Mhm.
Om. The sacred sound. Om. Actually, it doesn't even have to happen through me. It's happening right now. Everything is all of the existence is the sound of Om. And that's all that person needs to hear because they're that very sound themselves. But the sound of Om.
When someone, let's say someone is watching you and they're like, well, what is Om? He said the sound of Om, but I don't even know what that is. Am I supposed to just like say Om? Am I supposed to, like, what? Help me. What do you mean?
I think something on your end is dying. Your audio.
My
But
audio?
I
Like,
but I caught most of what you said. But what is the sound Om? What is that?
yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What is, yeah? So if I'm watching, I'm saying, okay, I heard him say the sound Om, but what does that mean? What does that mean? Am I supposed to just say Om? Am I like supposed to go find something saying Om? Like, what do you mean? I'm at
Person
the
could
edge.
say that.
Yeah. Okay.
A person could do that. You can sit here and say, and it's cliche. You hear it all the time. You hear that, right? But you can do it in a way where you can do it right in the bottom of your throat, where you can go until you feel the vibration in your throat. Another way you can do that, which is not the sound of but you can take your fingers. I'm going to take out my earbuds for a second. You can take your fingers. You can plug your earbuds. Can you still hear me? Let me just
Yeah, I could still hear you.
see if I can make sure you can still hear me. You can plug your earbuds, the holes in your ear, of course. What do you call it? Ear hole. I
Eardrums,
don't
ear
remember what it's
holes,
called.
eardrums. Yeah.
And you can hum. You can hum. You can go. You can do a sound like, well, not sorry, not hum. I haven't done this in a long time, but you can vibrate by pressing your lips together and just going. When you stick your fingers in your ear, you can amplify the sound. You can keep the sound within your head, and you can do it at different pitches.
I can't hear it. I feel like your mic, I'm not getting to hear it because of your mic.
So now I got to put my thing back in to hear you. Hold on. And you can do that over and over and over again. All of that is still Om. It's just you're not doing the sound of Om. You can do that, and it's also healing. It's healing for the brain. It's also healing for the nervous system. One could do that if they weren't using the technology, Yinnergy technology. But one could do that. So if she, or she, is it he or she?
No, that was just my
I
question.
guess it doesn't matter. I guess your question,
Yeah.
right? If
Hmm.
they're doing that, that practice alone could be very healing for the brain and for the nervous system. One can do that every day if they wanted to for a few minutes, or as long as you can. You can do that as a practice. You can sit down, cross your legs, or put your legs in the lotus position. Keep your back straight, eyes closed, plug your ears, and you could also, if you wanted to, if you plugged your ears, you can also take two of your fingers and you can press on the third eye as you stick your thumb in your ears and do that same sound. until you're out of breath. You inhale. One could do that, but at the end of the day, everything in the entire universe is Om. It's about just tapping into it. And there are different methods. It doesn't matter what you do, um, whether it's extreme or not. All of it is Om. One can tap into that, where they can tune into that, so that if they do have an experience where they awaken, it doesn't even have to be a full awakening, but just to get a glimpse of what's actually going on, it can be enough to inspire someone, or to motivate someone to continue on their path. There's really no wrong way of how to do it. Of course, there's ways to perfect techniques, and of course, if someone has a technique, it may take them 5 years to master it. But that's why I created Yinnergy, because you can do that quickly. What I do is I study people's brainwaves. So I hook people up to, like, when I'm doing neurofeedback training. Sometimes I'll just do the EEG part, so I can measure to see what their brain's actually doing. And so I measure people while they're under energy to see what's happening. And people are can tap into Delta on their very first try. And if someone tried to tap into
Wow.
Delta, that would take them 10, 15 years to do that. But through
Wow.
brainwave technology, you can do that in the first session. So there are different ways, though. Everything is different for everyone. Everyone has different preferences of how they want to do it. But we've had the yogic practices for thousands of years, and the reason why they're still here, because they work. So one can use any of
They
those
work.
techniques and dedicate themselves to yoga, any form of yoga, and tap in that way.
We have
Many different ways to do it.
yeah, no, I like that you shared that. Um, we have a few more comments. I see Dwayne said, very wise words from both of you. Appreciate the conversation. And then Hypnosis Sanctuary said, the remembering happens in stages. Morgan and I have a lot in common spiritually. Morgan, you are in my head. Vibratory frequency. You can also think about it. Use only thoughts. If you can just talk about Om. And then Dwayne said, what is the message of the Om when it comes to love? So when it comes to love, what message is Om? What is the message that Om is giving when it comes to love?
Depends on how you look at it. I wouldn't look at Om as being the message. Om is existence itself. So that has to include love, and everything is love. So there is no difference between Om and love. Same thing. This just depends on which aspect you want to tackle it from. But Om is love. Love is Om. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. Same thing.
Yeah, yeah, I love it, I love it. And then Hypnosis Sanctuary said, this is what you do when you do QHHT, and yes. Yes, yes, love it. Quantum healing hypnosis.
Quantum healing.
Yeah, up into, it's all in another level right now. But Morgan, I enjoyed this so much. Um, I would say you don't have any questions for me, right? You don't have anything for me. I feel like you brought out, I feel like our conversation, you just our being together, you just helped me to talk about certain things, although you were on here for you to talk. But you helped me just
That's
in,
all
in
good.
being able to like reflect, you know what I'm saying? Um,
We're
you
mirrors of each other.
mirroring, yeah, you helped me to see some parts of my own, even my experiences that I hadn't seen in a certain light, which is so beautiful when you think, okay, I've had the experience, I understand that, and then someone comes along and says, hey, you know, shines a little more light on it for you. So that is so appreciated. And I hope that your time sharing here and, our exchange of love and energy and presence has been edifying for you in whichever way you need it the most, but this was amazing. And I know the people who have tuned in and who have stayed all this time with us, they're obviously enjoying it and have found benefit in it. So thank you very
Oh,
much.
my pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah, they can join. They can join. Subscribe to my blog. I wouldn't mind using more subscribers.
That's right. And Hinosa is saying, what is Morgan's website? So I will put his link tree. You know what? I do have your link tree, right? But I will, do you want to tell me your website? I could put it in the chat. I just don't
Oh, it just depends which one. It's about which one. It depends which one.
I'm gonna put his
Put the
link
link
in the
tree. Yeah, put
description
the
for
link tree
sure.
because the first thing that's coming to my mind is Bodicare.org, but that's the nonprofit. The
Mm,
nonprofit's more dedicated to mental health, neurofeedback training, and meditation in regards to mental health as opposed to spirituality. But either way, they'll find me.
yeah.
Yinnergy, it's under a Gumroad site, so all my Yinnergy stuff is there for now. That if people want to try out Yinnergy Purge, they can go there. But that will be in the link tree as well. And of course, my blog post, the site for that is in the link tree. And then I have a bunch of other podcast interviews. Most of my podcast interviews are in the link tree, and magazine features are in the link tree. Yeah, it's just there's so much
Um,
stuff at this point
I
now. I can't even remember what's out there
I'm
anymore.
putting your link tree. I just dropped your link tree in the chat.
Oh, you dropped it in? Yeah,
Um,
so they can find all my stuff
and then
there, and they
also,
can hook up with me through
yeah, and
IG,
also
YouTube.
good. Yes, 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 definitely. And I'll drop your YouTube in here also. Morgan O. Smith 9 is the is your YouTube.
I think so. I couldn't
Yeah,
even tell you. It sounds like it could be it.
sounds right. No, that's it. That's it. I got it. So, and then
Okay.
Bodhi, yeah, Dwayne just put in the Bodhi here. So I will put all this information to in our
And of course, if they
description.
want to know more about Yinnergy, there's Bodhi in the Brain, which you can get on Amazon. And see, I never plug my stuff. Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and a whole bunch of other bookstores that you can find Bodhi in the Brain, Bodhi in the Brain.
Bod Bodhi. Bodhi in the brain.
Bodhi in the Brain. Yeah, talking about the algorithm 124875 Yinnergy, and how
Yes.
that works in the brain and what Yinnergy is all about, how it works, the benefits of Yinnergy, and the people who have benefited around the world. Of course, this all started here in Scarborough. People who benefited from Yinnergy, and now it's global. So people from Germany, Norway, South Africa, Morocco, India, Spain, um, the UK, the list of all the different places where people are using Yinnergy. Oh, Scotland, Australia. I just spoke to a guy in
Good.
Scotland today.
You're doing
Yeah,
it.
all these people are, people are tapping in and using it. More people are using it outside of North America
It's
than
always like
the
that.
North Americans. It's always like that, right? So,
It's always
yeah.
like that. Yes, it's always like that. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been um and it's funny, right? You see how you just said that and said it's always like that? There's a scripture that says a prophet has no honor in his own home. It's like that. See
It's so
now
true.
everything just makes right. It all is just there now. Yeah, but thank you so much. I really love this. I love this. I love you. Thank you for sharing yourself, sharing your heart, answering all these questions, and just being so transparent, with everyone who's watching. So I will tell you if you ever are in for, a part two, Morgan. I'm
Oh, I'd,
sure.
I'd be more than happy to do a part two. Yeah, just let me
Okay,
know and I'll check my schedule. I'll be more than happy to.
okay, great, great, great. So I love you and thank you to everybody else who has stayed, who have tuned in. If you would like to be a part of Love Story, please contact me. Just send me an email at lovestoryforyandea@gmail.com and we will get you all set up to come in and join and to share your story with the world. Okay, so have a great night and we will see you next Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye-bye. Good night.